Right, we should be live on YouTube. And also live on Mixer. Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can see us and hear us. Hopefully you can see us and hear us. Hopefully you can see us and hear us. That's right. I'll pop out of that chat. Yep, YouTube just alerted me that we're live. And we're just getting our stuff set up. We'll be starting in just a minute for those just tuning in. Will you recommend Windows 10 Pro for me? I recommend it.
Done and done.
Easy. Easy
Right.
peasy.
I'm going to send out the tweet.
Just test my mic quickly. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Oh, yeah, I got to do that too.
Testing 1, 2, 3. That sounds about right. Hi, Zach and Daniel. Hi, Richard. Hello, everyone. Saying hello. What happened this week?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
God, we got a lot to talk about.
Can't tell if my mic is set up properly. No, it is not. Testing one more time. Sorry, that's annoying.
Stop it, Dan. You're going to make our listeners stop listening.
Oh, I think it's recording properly now. Fingers crossed.
I closed the voice recorder like an idiot. There we are. Okay.
Oh, I got to turn the volume off on these YouTubes. All right, well, I am all set.
Me too.
All right, I am now recording.
I'm now recording.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 173 for April 3rd, 2020. Hey everyone, Deanna Rubino here, joined with Zach Bowden for another exciting quarantine version of the Windows Central Podcast. This week we're going to be talking about all sorts of... There's actually a lot of news this week.
Yeah.
In fact, I forgot I should set up my humidifier in this room because I'm probably going to lose my voice. I already feel like I'm drying out. Bear with me if I get crackly towards the end. But we got the HP Spectre X360 review I'll talk about. So I've finally reviewed that laptop. And I'll mention why I think it's pretty much the best 2-in-1. I actually prefer Dell's XPS 13 better, but it's so much more expensive. It's kind of hard to explain unless you're rich or just have more money, but I'll talk a little bit about that. AMD's Juggernaut processor. So a lot of hope is riding on the Ryzen 4000 series. I finally got to test their new gaming laptop processor, what's the equivalent of the Core i9. And I have a laptop here with it, and it is living up to the hype. And, you know, a lot of talk about that, but it seems to actually be true. And following that news, Intel also announced their 10th gen 45-watt chip, so the same class of processors. And it's a little bit less to be excited about. It seems like they're doing the old AMD thing, which is we just crank up the clock speed on these, so they go fast, but Can that compete with what AMD's doing? I'm not quite sure. We'll talk about Zach's Windows 10 Spring Update review. So that's a big deal as well. Now, we have no date on this update. Many of you are probably running it in slow ring. It is coming soon, but obviously with the COVID-19 thing, it's caused some delays. But since we know it's feature complete, Zach has already done a full written review and his really famous video walkthrough. So we'll talk about the pros and cons of this update and what to expect. We got a couple other things here too. Let's see. We'll talk about Skype Meet Now feature. So this is kind of unknown to a lot of people, but it's the ability to basically set up a meeting without having people being a part of Skype or logged in, which is kind of a complaint that Skype has had compared to something like Zoom. We'll also tie a little bit of Zoom news into that because Zoom's been in the headlines a lot this week, not for a lot of good reasons. Also talk about some new Microsoft Edge features and Microsoft 365 news. So this was a big thing on Monday too. We talked about it last week on the podcast, and this has to do with the Teams for consumers, which a lot of you have been hearing about since last summer, and it's now, it's going to become a reality. So, and then also Microsoft Dungeons real quickly. Jez Corden did a video walkthrough of that. I have it installed now. Now that game was delayed, and we'll talk about all that news, but why Microsoft Dungeons could be a big thing. And in fact, it may be a reason why we may bring back MGL, Microsoft Gaming Libations back, which I'm yearning to do, especially with this work from home stuff. But Dungeons may be the kind of game that allows us to do that. But I'm already tired from that. So
thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, seriously. Zach, how are you doing on this fine Friday?
I am not too bad. Can I just say before we get started, To-Do recently updated, and it's changed how the list works when you add new things to a list. So, because Dan was you reading that list chronologically there, Dan, or was you jumping all around the place?
We went over this. There's it has.
I know, but I've tried to organize, because you can still organize it manually, but I don't think that syncs now across to you. If I move something, will it sync? I don't think it will.
Oh,
because I've put Microsoft 365 at the top now, and I don't know if you can see that.
Nope, that is not true.
So yeah, that's why we're sort of reading these, and I'm trying to follow Dan, and Dan's reading them out of order for me. So it's kind of annoying, but we'll work through it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't notice that. Now I feel like I should set my humidifier in here.
Well, I'll tell you what, you could set that whilst I start with. Let's start with Microsoft 365 because I think that's the biggest news of this week.
So you'll dive into that, and I'll go do my sounds. So,
this week, Microsoft had a virtual event for press only. Weirdly, although it was an event streamed online, only press were allowed to access it. There was like a username and password that different media outlets got access to, and a link you could log in, and you could watch Microsoft's 20 to 30 minute sort of walkthrough of Microsoft 365, which we've talked about in the last couple of podcasts now. Microsoft 365 is Microsoft's consumer subscription that's designed to enhance your work life outside of work. So if you use Office in your personal lives at home for whatever reason, you will now be subscribing to Microsoft 365 rather than Office 365. So Office 365 isn't going away. That's important to sort of point out here. Office 365 is sticking around. It's now part of Microsoft 365. So what happens? So what do you get when you subscribe to Microsoft 365 here? So you get Office, all of the usual Office 365 apps, plus a whole bunch of new premium features inside those Office apps. Things like the editor, which works, which Word has had an editor for a while now, but this is like a brand new updated version, which is a lot more like Grammarly. And that's also coming to Microsoft Edge as well. We'll talk a little bit about that later. There's also a new PowerPoint Coach mode. PowerPoint Coach has been around again for a while, but it's now been updated with more premium features. There was also a new feature in Excel called Money, which is very similar to Microsoft Money, I think it was called back in the day. That's a program that's no longer around, but this sort of echoes it in Excel. You can hook up your bank accounts and see finance information and manage your money and all of that good stuff. There's also a bunch of new premium templates, fonts and icons that you get just for subscribing. And then there's a couple of new apps coming soon as well outside of Office. So there's Microsoft Teams for Consumer, which is something we've been talking about for a long time now, and this family safety app for iOS and Android, which I mentioned on last week's show, which is essentially the appification of Microsoft's online family safety tools, which have been around for a while, now coming to iOS and Android. So if we want to dive into this a little bit, let's first talk about the editor, because the editor, I think, is the biggest sort of new thing that's been updated with Microsoft 365. And it's essentially Grammarly, but built by Microsoft. It works inside Word. It'll be coming to Outlook.com, and it will also work in Microsoft Edge through a brand new editor extension that Microsoft has built for Edge and Chrome. Inside Word, you have to sort of initiate it. So I don't think it's running all the time. You have to click on the editor button inside Word. And then a sort of sidebar will come out, and at the top it will tell you how many corrections you need to make and how many refinements Microsoft is recommending. You can check spelling, grammar, acronyms, clarity, conciseness, formality, inclusiveness, and all sorts of other things as well. I've been using it in Edge for a few days now, and I'm not convinced that it's properly working yet. It does miss a lot of things, at least in my experience. I don't know if Dan has a different experience there, but especially when it comes to tweets and stuff, which are usually quick fire. You type it, you send it, you give it a quick glance, and that's it. If you don't give it time to sort of think about what it's looking at, it won't suggest anything to you. So if you hit send, it's too late, and obviously that text is gone. So you do have to give it a few seconds inside Edge to start working. Have you had a different experience, Dan?
Nope, that's been true of myself. I had sometimes I'm like, wait, is this on? What's going on? Is it broken? But yeah, it does. It works very well for me, by the way. And this is, I think, the important thing, because I'm such a huge fan of the PWA web app thing. Mm-hmm. It works in web apps very well. So if you're using, like, say, Twitter, Twitter is like infamous for people making grammar mistakes. And I'm terrible at writing. Like, you would think I'm not a speaker of English the way I write sometimes. So this for me is super helpful because, before there was kind of I think a native Windows spell checker, which was definitely helpful. Mm-hmm. But this actually tells you to do things like commas, which commas have always befuddled me. So,
and the good news about this as well is that there's actually a free version. So if you aren't subscribed to Microsoft 365, you can still download the Office, the extension for Edge or Chrome, and still get access to basic grammar and punctuation suggestions. But if you want more in-depth suggestions, you will have to subscribe. So that's the editor sort of in a nutshell. PowerPoint Presenter Coach. Again, this is a feature that's been around in Office for quite a while now, but it's been updated with some new features for premium subscribers. What it can do, I'll just read it word for word here. It uses AI to detect when you're talking too fast, saying things like or too often, and more. Microsoft 365 subscribers benefit from a new monotone pitch feature that will listen to your tone of voice and provide feedback in real time with suggestions on how you can add variation to your speech where necessary. So if you're somebody who has to do presentations to a wide audience, it's important to be engaging when you do that, because you can bore people quite easily just by sort of being very monotone and not changing your voice as you talk and being like that. That's very boring, right? PowerPoint Coach can suggest how to change that. Say, you should probably put more emphasis on this word, or say this louder, and stuff like that.
I think it also checks, and this was something I was taught a long time ago doing presentations, which is when you do a presentation, there's a habit that you just repeat what's on screen.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
And that's like redundant, all that. So it kind of catches you, I believe, if you're just reading from the slide versus doing a separate conversation compared to, and that's how you do really engaging work.
Yeah, because if you're reading from the slide, the coach is like, they can read the slide. You don't need to read it for them. Say something more engaging. So that's pretty nice. Also, Money in Excel. This is a new feature which I think is exclusive to Microsoft 365 subscribers. So if you are just using Office without the subscription, I don't think you get access to this feature. But it makes handling your finances much easier. Subscribers will be able to link bank and credit card information to Excel, which will import money and spending data directly into an Excel workbook and provide personalized insights on how you can better manage your money. It will automatically categorize spending habits into different groups so that you can easily see where your money is going every month. And a lot of people are excited about this because this echoes a program that Microsoft used to have a long time ago called Microsoft Money, which was apparently very popular, but Microsoft killed off for some reason. When did they kill it off?
That was killed off in 2009.
Wow, it's a long time.
Yeah, it was Microsoft Money 95. I just remember still seeing that packaging in the store, like at Staples. This was back when Staples was a thing and buying software in a retail box was a thing. But yeah, this eventually got supplanted by Quicken and today Mint. And people were always kind of bitter about it because This was something you would tie into your bank accounts, pull in your info, and allow you to manage your money. People generally really liked it. I don't know
Yeah.
what the story is behind that. And this is a return to that, except it's done through Excel, through a template, but it does the same thing. It can access your credit cards and bank accounts, pull in the money, break apart your finances. And, for Excel nerds, this is actually a really big deal. So
Yeah.
I'm actually really happy about this.
I think this is US only, though. I don't think it's available in other markets just yet because banks are different all around the world.
Yeah, the bank, and I think that's probably part of it
Yeah.
because the banks are one of the most highly regulated markets, especially United States,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very tough to get stuff that works with all your banks. So it's a challenge there.
Yeah. So let's dive into Microsoft Teams for Consumer real quick. We've been talking about this for a while. We were calling it Microsoft Teams for Life at some point. That was an internal sort of code name, inspirational name. But the official name is just Microsoft Teams, and then I guess you could refer to it for consumers. It is the Microsoft Teams you know and love, or not so love if you don't like Electron. And all Microsoft is doing here is adding consumer features to the Teams client. Now, these will be coming first to the iOS and Android apps, so the desktop client will be remaining strictly for business, more or less. But the iOS and Android apps will be getting things like a family dashboard and the ability to invite family members to a group or a team, if you will, have the dashboard display everybody's upcoming events and locations and photos and items shared between family members and stuff. And obviously a group chat where you can all share information and stuff there as well. You can have things like saved password documents. So if you have the Wi-Fi password, you could put that in your family team, and then the kids can access that if they need to add a new device to your Wi-Fi and all of that good stuff. I'm not too sure about this. Microsoft says it's coming later in the year. No date given, but I'm not a huge fan of the Microsoft Teams clients. I think it's very business focused, and adding consumer features, I think I don't know. I think Microsoft is doing
I think
this wrong.
I think they said there when you log into your consumer account, I think some features are going to go away
Maybe,
that are
yeah,
like
that makes sense.
enterprise features,
Yeah.
and then some other ones will be turned on for consumers. So it's a question we don't really know how it's going to be answered in terms of how it looks and functions.
Yeah.
But that's my understanding, at least.
Yeah. So yeah, that's coming later in the year. That won't be available when the Microsoft 365 subscription launches, which is on April 21st. And finally, the Family Safety app. This is for Android and iOS. It'll be much more useful on Android because iOS is obviously locked down by Apple, so Microsoft doesn't really have access to much on that platform. But on Android, at least, you'll be able to control things like app access, screen time usage, browsing data, location history, all of that stuff that you can already control on Windows 10 and Xbox. You will now be able to control on an Android phone if your child has one as well. And the app will also send you alerts and stuff if your kid leaves school, but during a time where he's not supposed to be leaving school, he or she. And you can also approve spending if say your child is trying to buy a game on the Microsoft Store. You'll get a notification on your phone or PC that says, "Hey, your child is trying to spend $25 on this game. Would you like to let that happen?" You can say yes or no. Same with accessing websites or apps that you may have blocked before. If they need to access it for one thing or another, you can allow them once or unlock that website forever. And that's nice because like previously that was only available on Windows and Xbox and configurable online, but now you'll be able to configure it on your phone as well, which is super handy. iOS users will be able to do the sort of approving requests from their children, but they won't be able to lock down iPhones because obviously that's in Apple's garden. Microsoft doesn't have access to that, but it will be able to do the sort of checking to see where the kid is and stuff to make sure they're where they're supposed to be, which is good. And that's pretty much it for Microsoft 365, really. It's the same price as Office 365, so $6.99 a month for the personal SKU and $9.99 a month for the family SKU. And that will be launching April 21st. Essentially, it is more or less a rebrand of Office 365 with a bunch of new features and a couple of new apps coming soon.
Yeah, and by the way, the Microsoft 365 notes and To Do did sync up. It is now number one.
Oh, okay.
That's good.
Just took a while.
Yeah, live updates of our To Do experience.
Yeah.
Now, I think this is good because, there's this question of like when you're charging for a service, right? There's, oh, look at that. See, and you just move Microsoft
I'm
Edge.
moving them around.
You go To Do team. You see, it's working. But yeah, when you're charging for a service, there's this question of value, right? And so it's nice to see these things that paying for Word and Office is a necessity for a lot of people, but it's hard to get excited over, right?
Yeah.
I know there's some people who are like Word, Excel nerds who just, they're part of the Office Insider program, which you should all be a part of, by the way. If you're in your Office app, in your Word app, you can go just enroll right into the Insider program, and you can get the fast ring basically, or monthly updates, and get the new features early. But for most of us, it's not an exciting subscription. It's sort of like paying car insurance. It's like, I got to do it. But these features actually kind of make it exciting. The editor feature, I think, is, definitely super useful.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest challenge for me with editor was when you used to see a little red line squiggle, you would right click on it to
Yeah, now
bring
you've got
up.
a left click on it. Yeah.
Now it's a left click,
Which
and
is
that's still throwing me off a little bit. Um, but I like these features. I think the money in Excel is great. The family stuff ties into your phone, which has that too, right?
Mhm.
This has been a big concern for Microsoft that they've been focusing on. And yeah, some of this stuff are old ideas, right? Whether it's like Windows Phone 7's Room feature, which we've talked about before, which is a really brilliant idea, but it was locked down just to Windows Phone 7. It didn't even exist on Windows PC, which was always like severely limiting. And now they're bringing some of these concepts back. Now, I think the big one, of course, is going to be Teams. And there's a lot of questions, right? They've announced it, but it's not coming till later this year.
Yeah, and they didn't really
And,
show it off in the live stream
right.
either. There was a little bit of it, but we haven't seen much of that or the family safety app really.
And that's a bit of a shame. Obviously, this is would have been an amazing time to have launched that app.
Yeah, I think just the timing doesn't line up. I think it's just not ready, unfortunately.
Yeah. But I'm looking forward to seeing, a lot of people say in the chat right now that Teams is too complex. And I agree. And
I
that's why
agree
I'm
as well.
curious. Because as my understanding is, like I said, certain features will be removed that don't make sense for consumers, while other ones will be added, like the family stuff. How that balance happens in the actual experience, though, that's going to be the real
Yeah.
big question that we won't know for a few months. But
And I'll be interested to see what happens to the Windows client because, like I said, they've only really announced these families features for the mobile apps. They've not really said that this will be coming to the Teams client, or if they haven't detailed that in any way. I feel like Electron is horrible for a family like lightweight communications app. Although on the subject of Electron, real quick, we should probably mention that the Xbox app this week, the new one, got updated from an Electron app to a React Native UWP. And
yes.
it makes a world of difference. If you've ever wanted to see the benefits of UWP, use the Xbox Beta app before, if you're not in the fast ring, and then update to the fast ring and install the latest one. It is so much better. It uses like way less RAM. It's way smaller. The app is just smaller in general, and the UI doesn't lag anymore. It's fast and it's fluid, and it's amazing how different and how better the experience is now that it's a React Native UWP rather than using Electron, which just sucks in every regard.
Yeah, and that's so Teams and Skype, or the new Skype that's going, are both Electron. And for those curious, it's up to those teams to decide what framework and app development system they want to use. So they now, I said in the past, the reason I think Skype and actually Teams kind of, I don't want to say make sense, but the justification probably they would give is these are sort of web first services. They exist on the web, and then they're like, all right, let's take that web experience, turn them into cross-platform apps with the lowest amount of work, basically, and maintenance, so that if we do something on the web, it goes right to the apps. That's the benefit of using Electron. But as Zach correctly pointed out, the user experience is not necessarily better. And I think that's where it separates with the Xbox app. The Xbox app really didn't make sense because it's not a web-based system, although there was a cross-app and platform play to be had there. We do expect the Xbox app to show up on Mac soon. But that said, I think for user experience, they do need to balance sort of, the experience versus the workload. And I think, we've said it before, Skype and even Teams being on Electron is not a particularly great experience. Now, in a little bit of fairness to Electron itself is an evolving system. It gets updated routinely. They have made a lot of progress. If you follow the developer documentation on Electron, a lot of progress on reducing memory usage and improving performance. They did recently officially starting support ARM64. It's recompiled for that. We haven't seen Teams or Slack integrate that yet, but that possibility is going to be there now. So when it may not be ready. Maybe there's a couple other things that other libraries that need to happen, but it's evolving. So there's a chance Electron can get better, right?
Yeah.
And that may be something that these development teams are betting on. We don't know, but it's kind of a frustrating experience.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it for Microsoft 365. Alongside the announcement of 365, Microsoft also announced a bunch of new features for Edge, which will be coming at some point in the future. They didn't give any dates or ETAs for this. But the three big things that sort of stood out in this announcement were a new smart copy feature, which essentially makes copying web content over to Word or PowerPoint or something way easier. So, for example, if you ever tried to copy a table from Wikipedia or something, the copy has never usually brought that formatting over to the Word document. It usually sort of pastes and it's ugly and you have to fix it. With Smart Copy, Microsoft says they fixed this. So when you do copy that table in Word, it should actually copy as a table and paste it into Word now. So that's good. Also coming to Edge in the future, a new vertical tabs UI. So if you're a power user who has several thousand tabs open at once, I don't know how you people manage to do it. I have maybe 4 at most, and then I start closing things. But if you are somebody who has loads of tabs open and the top bar gets really squished because you've got so much open, you can now turn on a vertical tabs mode, which lists your tabs down the left side of the window rather than across the top. So this does technically show less tabs at once, but you get the titles of each tab, which is important for lots of people who may not be very good at remembering icons for different websites. You now still get to see the titles of the tabs. You could just scroll through the list and click on the one you're looking for, which is super handy. And the last...
Super weird, by the way.
Yeah, it is super weird.
That's one of those features, and this seems to be... We don't expect the restore tabs feature to return, but between this and collections, they almost seem to have taken some of the ideas behind it and gone further. I'm really curious with the vertical tabs, how that works, and whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
But
and there was something else that they announced that I literally had it and it's gone. What was the last
Sorry.
thing they announced? It was Smart Copy, vertical tabs. Oh, and password monitor. That was it. So password monitor. So this is the rumored password manager that we thought was coming in Microsoft 365. Some wires were crossed, and it's not exactly a manager, but it is a monitor. So what that means is inside Microsoft Edge at some point in the future, you'll be able to have obviously your saved passwords in there, which you can currently do, but there will be a new monitor which checks a known database for whether those passwords and usernames have been leaked online. So say you use a website and that website is the victim of an attack and all of the users get their username and password leaked. Microsoft can check that database, and if it sees that your username and password is in that database, it can actually ping you inside Edge and say, hey, your username and password for this website has leaked. You need to change your password on all of the websites where you have the same password, which you shouldn't do that, by the way, but lots of people do. So that's why this feature exists. So it's a safety feature more than anything. It'll just alert you whenever your password has been leaked, and then gives you the opportunity to go in and change your password on the website or all the websites where you have that same password. So I actually really like the idea of this feature. This is the kind of thing that's going to make Microsoft Edge stand out from the likes of Google Chrome and Firefox and stuff. Because I think it's fair to say a lot of people are looking at the new Edge right now and seeing a Chrome copycat. And I don't blame people who are thinking that. It does look like Chrome, after all. But features like this, I think, will really differentiate it. And it's just going to take time for these features to sort of come out. Because although Edge launched in January, I wouldn't say it was finished in January. I think this is an evolving platform, an evolving browser. And we're only now just starting to hear about some consumer-based features that people are going to enjoy. So I'm very excited for the password monitor. But again, no ETA for when that will show up.
Yeah, and we did ask Microsoft during this about, because it seems logical. It's like, well, you've come this far. Like, are you going to do an actual proper password manager? And they were very quiet on it. I don't think they're planning on doing it.
Me neither.
But because that's a big market, and one could argue that's a market already well served. Like, it's not like LastPass or 1Password are people don't hold them in high regard. And I prefer NPass myself because they've always been big supporters of Windows and Windows Hello and stuff like that. And so that's kind of a crowded market. I feel like what they're doing with this is, because I still use NPass, and I don't use Edge to save a lot of passwords. I use it to save passwords for non-critical accounts, my Kohl's, like login, right? Or like Walmart, stuff like that. Um, and so I'll use Edge to save the password there just for convenience sake. My bank, though, and like, Microsoft, I don't store those. Um, and so I feel like this just plays into Microsoft's continuing effort into security
Yeah.
and just making sure. And it's sort of like some people still don't use full-on password managers. They do just rely on the browser system to do that. In fact, that's
I'm one of
an
them.
obstacle. Yeah, and that's an obstacle for people who won't switch browsers. Is they're like, well, all my
Yeah.
passwords are stored in this one, and so this doesn't solve that. But what it does is for those people who are now on Edge, it certainly makes the experience a better experience. And so I commend Microsoft. I think these are all smart, well propositioned features that really help make people, I don't know, your PC experience more useful,
Yeah.
productive, secure. It goes to show you too, when you think about this, you got Skype, you have Teams now, you have Word and Office, you have Money and Excel, we have Microsoft To Do. Of course, there's OneNote. There's the no, I forgot the name, the white one, the whiteboard. Yeah, the
It's
whiteboard
called
app.
Whiteboard.
Yeah, whiteboard. Yeah, what's that whiteboard app called? Which it has a new PM who's doing it. So when you think about all these technologies, like they all work together, they all play off of each other, they all link and share. Microsoft really is doing this good job of creating a both consumer, a student-focused, enterprise-focused software that spans all those categories, and it's actually like useful stuff. And I think that's really exciting. And I believe a lot of this stuff is probably an extension of the Office team, which has always been considered to be sort of the gold star team. I don't know if Skype's a part of that team, and how you explain Skype, but the rest is pretty good, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. This is neat stuff, and it's funny just because I point this out because Office 365 is something I think Zach and I are typically like, okay, well we'll let Mary Jo Foley handle this, along with Azure. But this was actually like really interesting. Like I think a lot of people in our audience, and I know you and myself are generally excited about this stuff. So especially and when you think about Surface Duo and Surface Neo, Surface devices, and then utilizing this stuff. And with Panos now in charge of Windows 10 and focusing, like, I don't know, it's like these are the right moves, right? This is the right stuff we kind of want to see.
Yeah. It's also worth mentioning, because I was confused by this when they were sort of telling us about it in the pre-brief. These new Edge features aren't tied to Microsoft 365. These are coming to Edge separately, standalone. You don't have to subscribe to this new Microsoft 365 subscription to get them. They're just features coming to Edge, just happen to be announced alongside the new subscription. So don't worry, you won't have to pay for any of these, which is super nice. But that was pretty much the March 30th event. All of the big announcements coming out of that. No hardware, of course, we knew that anyway. We are hearing that possibly later in April, early May, spring hardware event. Obviously won't be live, it won't be in person. Press won't be going to anything. They'll just have I don't know if it will even be live streamed. It might just be blog posts. We don't know how they're going to announce these new hardwares, but they are doing it this spring still, is what I'm hearing.
It's just Panos staring at a webcam.
Yeah. Hello, everyone.
And then he just slowly moves the product up in front of him while he's staring. He's so creepy but fun. I could do funny social media with Panos. I should direct him.
Yeah, I wish PR would let us do stuff like that to make it more fun. The problem is Microsoft doesn't like fun. They can't be seen as a fun
It's a
company.
fine balance between being fun, corny, and professional.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing. I just want to shout out to the comment DC Tonka Truck who said Skype is to Microsoft as Nextel is to Sprint. If you're in the United States, you'll get that reference. I agree 100%. I don't enjoy criticizing Skype. We're using it right now, and I think a lot of us want the product to do well, but there's no doubt that its last 5 years has just been all over the place and just really says mismanaged. They don't know what they're doing. I hope that changes. They did today. Two things that we've complained about is like and we'll talk about that now. The Skype thing, Skype Meet now. This is a feature. It's actually even I don't know when it came out. It came out recently, though. Meet now is ability. If you have a Skype account, you can create a meeting, generate a link, and give people that link, and they don't need an account to join into it, right? And that's a big deal. I mean, I think a lot of people do have Skype accounts, but at the same time, this is a feature of like Zoom that is made Zoom pretty favorable. It's like you don't need an account to join in. You just, someone gives you the link and you pop in like that. So Skype has actually had this feature for a little while, but it's not well promoted. And today Skype, the Skype team tweeted it out and did a how-to. Earlier this week, Jez Corden did a how-to on it as well. So that's on Windows Central right now if you want. It's on the front page. And you can go and look to see how it's done. So, Skype has like a lot of good stuff going for it, including its name, but they definitely need a little bit more focus. So, but the Skype Meet now, it's a really nice feature. If you're looking at this time of being at home and you want to stay friends, contact with friends and everything, generate a meeting, you can get the multi-window support just like Zoom. But, correct me if I'm wrong, Zoom has the blur background feature, that's pretty cool, but doesn't have the backgrounds feature, which I think Teams does have.
Yeah.
And Zoom definitely has it. In fact, I see, again, following the zeitgeist of where this is on Twitter and social, you see people sharing hilarious backgrounds to use, and they say, here's a new Zoom background. And it's all Zoom backgrounds, right? It's not like Teams. And that'd be such a useful feature to have on Skype because it's clear that these kind of funny things, or even I know Teams does integrate with Snap to do the funny filter things. And as far as I know, Skype doesn't do that. I'm not sure. But these are the kind of things that they really should be kind of focused
on. Did you mention that Skype gave out some numbers for usage over the last couple of weeks? They announced...
Right. And that was the second thing I was going to say. We complained about that, and then they did actually release numbers. So share those if you want.
Yeah. So I can't remember off the top of my head. So the big one is 40 million users, which is up a significant amount from I think 20-something million before. But which sounds great, but when you compare it to Zoom, which went from 10 million users to 200 million users, Skype doesn't seem to be doing all that great in comparison. It's funny, like I think we mentioned this on last week's podcast. 10 years ago, if this pandemic was happening then, everybody would be using Skype to do all this because that was the video calling thing you went to. But today, apparently, Skype is an afterthought. Normal people are going to Zoom. I didn't even think about Zoom until this all started. As someone in the tech industry, I didn't even think about Zoom until people were writing about how everyone's using Zoom now.
If I could be a meme GIF, I'd be that weird stuffed monkey that does this. That's the Skype team right now. But why? What about us?
Yeah.
And the problem with Zoom Zoom's a corporate client. It's meant for businesses.
Yeah.
But it's caught on, and now the spotlight is biting them because I think the FBI is giving out warnings. They're being sued by New York and California. There's a lot of security concerns. People are doing what's called Zoom bombing, this is the problem when you have open link systems, is apparently people are like figuring out the links.
Yeah.
And they're jumping into these chats.
Did you see the UK government posted a picture like the cabinet meeting using Zoom
Boris
and they
Johnson.
had the meeting ID in the photo. It's like, now anyone can just jump into this meeting.
Yeah, I believe it. And it was like Boris Johnson's laptop running Windows, which is fine, but it's running this Zoom over Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Which is literally about the most insecure you can get in 2020.
Christ.
But yeah, so Zoom bombing, people are like popping in, they're wearing masks and they're just like trashing people's meetings. I heard they're even like running like graphic videos.
Oh yeah, I've seen
which is just like, I mean, this is why we can't have nice things. But this is why like open link systems can be bad. But again, like, so, Skype, for all our complaints, doesn't have any of those problems. Now there's this big question of like, do customers even care? That's a separate one. I almost feel like, I was going to do an editorial about this, how, people kind of do care about security, but there's also a sort of security fatigue. It's almost every day you hear like Capital One's, system leaked and thousands of passwords, or this retailer stuff leaked, or there's always hacks and vulnerabilities, even with Windows, right? How many times do we get to like zero-day vulnerability, and it could lead to remote execution on your computer and all this kind of stuff. And I feel like there's so much of this because we're surrounded by so much technology that when it comes to something like Zoom, people are like, well, I'm just making a quick call with my friends and family. Who
Yeah,
cares?
yeah.
And
I'm,
so
I'm I'm in the same boat with that. I genuinely don't care. Even when passwords leak, I genuinely don't really care. I'm not too bothered about it unless it directly ties to like my banking. If it's my money that they could get to, then there's a problem. But if it's data, I
yeah.
genuinely don't really care. I don't care. Which I know you
Well, it
shouldn't. You
happened.
shouldn't have that mindset. But
It's relative, right? Because I think
yeah.
social networks, it's a big deal,
I
because
just I don't talk to anyone. I'm lonely.
no, but like on Twitter, if someone took over Zach's Twitter
Oh
account and
sure,
started
yeah,
tweeting out
that's
X-rated
right.
photos,
Yeah, I guess yeah,
like, like that would be you'd have to now get your account back, which is a
yeah.
thing. Meanwhile, your audience is going to start to unsubscribe from you because they're going to be like, dude, what the heck? And they're not going to want to see that.
Yeah.
You're going to get blocked, and you recovering from that it's going to be a challenge,
Yeah,
right?
you're
So
right.
like, um, yeah, I don't know. This stuff is it's interesting. Hopefully, Skype can turn it around a little bit. But yeah, go Skype, check out Skype Meet now. Like I said, we have a tutorial on the front page of Windows Central. It's not hard, but if you're looking to do this and not use Zoom, and Zoom has like not only can like your password leak for it, um, the data sharing with Zoom has been called into question. They share your data with Facebook, even if you don't have a Facebook account. There's like all sorts of
Yeah.
stuff. It's
Didn't they say that they've stopped doing that now? Oh, well,
I
why were they
believe
doing
so.
it in the first place, though?
This is the problem.
It's all
Like,
about the money.
this is always the issue with new, what I call fad apps. This is a fad, right? This is an app that went from a specific function to being adopted to another one. And it basically, using that word again, zeitgeist, it caught into the zeitgeist of technology and media and social. Um, I saw the other day, someone's like, I zoomed this person, like they're using it as a verb, right? So like it's catching on. But the problem with these is the more exposure they get, it shows all its flaws, and that's what's happening now.
See, that's
So
the problem with Teams. You can't verb it. I teamsed.
I teamed. Good point. That's a. I wonder if that comes up in marketing.
It
Cause, so
must do, surely.
so
That's what
part of the
I'd be thinking
problem with
about.
this is like companies actually are supposedly don't like. So I guess the issue is this, and because Google is like this, Google. If you're in media, like if you're doing a movie or TV show or something like that, you're not supposed to say, "I Googled that,"
Yeah.
and use it as a gerund or a verb. Um, because the problem is I think when those words start to become modified and go from proper nouns to verbs, it starts to undermine the copyright of that phrase. And so like it becomes an issue because it then becomes synonymous with that function. So Google becomes a synonym for searching, and then it loses its, like, they can't enforce. And I think that's actually the reason why companies don't want their names to
Mm.
become verbs, which is that's a whole separate interesting topic. If anyone's an expert in that stuff or has heard the same, share the links in our chat room now, or tell me I'm wrong on Twitter. That's fine. I'm pretty sure I'm right. So,
Yeah.
anyway, that's Skype Meet now. Let's talk now about Microsoft events kind of canceled.
Yeah,
Um,
this is kind of sad. I mean, I think we sort of knew this was coming because of the ongoing sort of pandemic. Lots and lots of in-person events have been cancelled, and some of them are converting to online-only events for this year. And while we knew Build and this upcoming Surface event and all of that were not going to be in-person events, we were still sort of holding out that maybe Ignite would be a in-person event. Hopefully by then in September this would have all blown over and we could all go back to hanging out and drinking in bars and stuff. But no, Microsoft is being extra protective here, which is, I think, is the right choice, and unfortunately, but it makes sense. And they've decided that for the rest of this year, all of 2020, and even into the spring of 2021, I think up to June, Mary Jo reported, they will not be doing any in-person events. So that means Builds out, Inspires out, Ignites out. Any hardware events for this year are out. E3 is out, obviously, but then also Build next year is out as well. The MVP Summit for next year is out, unless they move it to later in the year, of course. But anything that was supposed to be held up to June 2021 isn't going to be happening as an in-person event now. So I assume most of those will convert to online events. We know Build is going to be an online thing. I will be interested to see if Ignite's an online thing. I think it will be, because I think Ignite's their biggest conference, and I think they can still get a lot of value out of that, doing online sessions for IT pros and stuff. But then next Build, well, who knows? This could be a good point for Microsoft to drop Build from its list of keynotes and conferences they do, because there's been that rumor for a while, right, that Microsoft kind of wants to stop doing Build and just do everything at Ignite, and maybe this will be the moment where they can do that, because they've cancelled it for this year. It's not happening next year now. Maybe it just never happen again.
Yeah, and so we've heard there's been some reports, and this isn't probably at all that surprising, that a lot of companies have switched to virtual only events. They've seen a lot of registrations. In fact, they can register more people than who can physically attend, and they're still making a lot of money on those registrations, and they're getting more of an audience to show up, or at least, commit to showing up. And it's probably not too surprising, right? Because I said, like, it's virtual. You can have like 10,000 or 100,000 people in theory show up versus like a 5,000 person event.
My question there is, but can you charge the same amount? Because Build, for example, is I think $2,500 or something around there. It's a lot of money for a ticket to attend Build.
I agree.
Can you charge that same amount for an
I don't know
online
if they
version
need
of Build?
to. So that comes to that question. They can lower the price if they're going to get more people, and makes up for that difference. But if you think about it also, what's that cost? That was it, $2,500. You and I have both been to Build. It's not a cocktail party. It's huge. Like, they have to rent the whole center out. They have to have rooms set up and tables, and they have to have all the AV equipment set up, all the meals, and there's a ton of food that's done like 3 times a day. There's all the swag, and I mean, I've heard numbers for that they spent on swag, which I forgot them now. They were very high now. Like when they give out those backpacks. Like, they give out like high quality backpacks.
I think I remember them being in the millions. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a ton of money. So your $2,000 is mostly going to pay for all that and all the people who are staffed there. Think of all they're literally just human beings who stand around with a sign telling you what direction to go.
They're getting paid.
And they're human, direction people. So you think about that. That's where all that money is really going towards. And I'm sure, Microsoft probably just breaks even, or I don't know if they make much profit on there, right? But if you go to virtual, you don't have any of that really. So they should be able to charge a lot less, and that's going to be really interesting to follow. But because now, if you think about it, Build is like $500 or $200, right?
Yeah.
Well, and you get a lot more developers now to show up. I don't know.
I wouldn't even be surprised if it's free at this point, because obviously the keynote has always been free. You can tune in online and just watch that. Yeah. Is it worth Microsoft's effort to try and put the actual sessions behind a paywall, which is essentially what that turns into at that point, right? Unless they're planning to offer additional sort of one-on-ones with people, and you can pay to get access to that, which is kind of what you would be able to do if you were at Build. I don't think they'll go that far. I think the networking aspect of it is out when it comes to a virtual event. I don't think you get that same level of intimacy and networking. So I think it will just be the keynote, and then there'll be sessions for the most important stuff, and I think it will just all be free. I'd be surprised if you have to pay for the sessions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. There is now the downside to this stuff, which is that, like, we don't, we lose the human contact, right? Yeah. And that's going to be kind of a big deal, I think, because a lot of us do enjoy, like, developers enjoy talking and meeting with other developers and basically talking shop. It's also, when you go to these sessions, the big thing about the session is not necessarily the content that's given. It's after you get to do a Q&A. And even after that, people hang around and have side conversations with the people who are doing the presentations and get answers. And that stuff is kind of invaluable. It's hard to put a measurement on it, but even you and I get stories a lot of times, or clarifications on technologies that we can later then write up and, like, oh, this is actually a big deal, and here's kind of why. But we're living in a new world, so we'll have to wait and see how this all happens.
It just means me and Dan won't be able to hang out for
it was funny because last
months.
year, 2019, I think it was like 3 times we saw each other. And it was going to be, and this year was going to probably be as much, if not more. I'm still, I doubt IFA is going to happen at this point, which is
Yeah,
that's
I'm gonna take this as an opportunity to get ripped, and then the next build or whatever the next conversation
there
is
you
gonna
go.
show up. I'm like, yeah, look at me now, I've changed.
Yeah, it's I've switched to I'm not vegetarian, but I've really cut back on meat. I'm probably like 90% vegetarian at this point. But I've lost 6 or 7 pounds already, and I'm
Wow.
not particularly
I mean, you're inside
over.
all day.
Yeah, I'm not particularly overweight, but I'm trying to get my body fat percentage down. But between that and fasting and controlling my calories, I'm trying to like. But I feel way better than expected. I'm doing still 20-hour fasts when I can, and mentally I'm just like on fire. Like I feel like absolutely fantastic. But it is a good opportunity. I did get a rowing machine too, which helps to keep in shape. But yeah, if you're home stuck at home, this is probably a good opportunity to try to think about
Yeah, people
lifestyle
are either gonna
changes.
go two ways. They're either gonna get really fit and actually think about their health from now on, or they're just gonna not get
Yeah, and
put
and
weight
there's
on.
good good reasons here to try to really focus on your health because if
Yes.
your immune system and your general health is better, if you do come in contact with the coronavirus, hopefully it'll benefit you
Yeah.
versus don't spend all your time drinking and getting
I know
overweight
it's so
because
tempting in these times to just drink your sorrows away, but don't do it.
you know I know we're getting sidetracked here, but I think this is interesting. It's just like I enjoy alcohol. I'm not straight edge at all. I enjoy smoking marijuana. It's legal in my state. So before you come
Damn.
at me,
Can't
it's
believe you
legal
just
here.
revealed that.
I know. But that said, it's moderation for me. But I have for moderation, it's not about, I got to tell myself to moderate. It's like, it's the same issue I have with gaming, which is I'm incapable. I actually get tired of drinking. If I have more than 2 or 3 drinks, I get kind of bored from it. Same with getting, with marijuana. And I'm lucky in that sense where for me, it's easy to stop and control this stuff. Um, but it is important because we are seeing an increase in alcohol usage and all that. But for all the people who are, at home and dealing with this stuff, there are ways to sort of take advantage of this. It is a weird time because you're literally being told to stay at home and like watch TV. And for some of us, that's the dream. And it's you're not going to get this opportunity, hopefully, ever again. But yeah, it's fun to think about this stuff.
Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah, stay in shape.
So yeah, that's pretty much it for the events cancellation news. It is, like I said, it's very unfortunate. It's very sad for a lot of us who do work from home all year round, and sort of those events are the one or few times a year we get to go and hang out with our friends in the industry. Because otherwise, in fact, 98% of my friends in real life don't care about Microsoft or technology. So it's like I have to talk to them about things that they like, and I,
Netflix. Dude, wait. Sidetrack again. Have you watched Tiger King?
I have not. I've seen people raving about it online.
I have one episode left. It's one of those things. If you haven't watched Tiger King, you might have heard a lot about it. It may be rolling your eyes or like, what's the big deal? I didn't even watch any trailers for it. I just heard enough about it. I didn't even know what it was really about. We just put it on, and what a roller coaster! Like it is. No one can make up this story. It is absolutely insane. It's a 7-part series on Netflix. By the time you get to like the third episode, you're just going to be like shaking your head like, we are living in weird times. It's the craziest story, weirdest people. It's fascinating.
That's how I felt about the documentary they did about what was it called? Don't F with Cats. We'll say the actual title. It was the documentary about.
Oh, don't F with. Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
watch that. That's how the subject matter really kind of.
Oh,
I know what it's about,
it makes
but
your blood boil, but yeah, it's very good.
yeah, that was something I don't know. Like I try to stay away from all the dark stuff. Tiger King isn't too dark. It's more
yeah.
like
Just crazy.
watching a train wreck of
Yeah.
people. But if you do want something, I recommended it last week. I'm still going to recommend it. Devs on Hulu. In this audience, you guys would absolutely love it. Like it's super smart, intelligent, sci-fi stuff. Go watch Devs. Yeah, we should do a separate section on how we're keeping busy at home.
Maybe do it for next week.
Yeah. And there's also a lot of the home movie stuff, by the way, like Microsoft Store, Vudu, Hulu, Amazon. They're all releasing movies early. Trolls World Tour comes out today. I don't care. I don't have a family, but I've heard if you have like children, Trolls is a big deal. You can now buy it, or you can rent it. I think for 20 hour or 24 hours, or 48 hours, $20, which is way cheaper than a movie ticket. So there's plenty of these opportunities here to keep entertained, and maybe I don't know, reading. Reading is always good. I just think of Jez when I talk about reading because Jez is completely anti-book.
Anti-book.
Like he just does not read, but I get it. Reading it's a different
Also, real quick, let's just shout out Amanda, who is in our chat on Mix right now. Amanda being the new head of the Windows Insider program. Hello, Amanda.
Oh,
thanks for tuning in.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Hello, Amanda.
Shall we talk about your Spectre X360 review?
Yeah, I finally got to review this. This is I feel so bad sometimes. Like I have so much stuff to do that I get sidetracked, and I'm literally like that dog. Will see something shiny. I'm like, oh, shiny. And so sometimes when I get new laptops or tech, I'll like the Pro X has obviously been my biggest shiny object. I'm really just excited about it. Now the Spectre X360 I've had for months, and I've been kind of like using it and all that, but I'm not as excited about it because of the simple reason it's 16 by 9. And I'm okay with 16 by 9 on like 15-inch laptops. It doesn't matter as much. But on 13 inches, it really starts to bother me after using Surface products for a long time because it gets too narrow for me. So I'm just like, I prefer not to. That said, I finally got around to reviewing it, did a proper thing of it. And if you don't mind the 16 by 9, and actually some people actually do prefer it, and no judgment here.
People are crazy. I'm judging.
But listen, this is the amount HP is charging for this laptop, and what you get from it is the best value. Like if you have $1,100, you're like, that's my ceiling on a laptop, or even $1,000 because sometimes it goes on sale, and you want a convertible laptop that kind of checks all the boxes for Windows 10. This is hands down your best bet. Let's talk about the specs here. So you can get the full HD display. You can get 4K. I don't recommend 4K unless you can really justify needing 4K, like you edit photos or something like that. I think you pay an extra $200 for it, and you're going to take about a 20% hit on battery, which is the battery life is okay on this device. It's like it's all day. It's like 7 to 9 hours, depending on how you maximize it, which is fine. But if you do 4K, you're going to take 20% off of that. But the full HD display is really nice. They're doing like anti-reflectiveness on their displays, so they're still kind of glossy, but it doesn't reflect the light as much. It's much easier to look at, and I'm really happy about that. And HP is finally doing that stuff. It's obviously a touch screen. It supports inking. In fact, HP gives you the pen in the box. And that's a big deal. No one else does that. Like now, if you want the pen with tilt, it's like an extra $30, right? Tilt is good for artists, but most people don't need it. But still, that's a heck of a deal. They also give you a leather sleeve for the laptop, which has a pen holder on it, which again, no one else does that. It's a nice value add. You can get Core i5, Core i7, all 10th gen stuff. You can get 8 or 16 gigs of RAM. I forgot if you can do 32. I forgot about that. You can get up to 2 terabyte SSD. They do Optane too, which is kind of interesting. Optane's really interesting. It's an Intel cache system. So it learns what apps you launch all the time, and it kind of keeps those in cache to launch quicker. It's weird. But you also get a really good keyboard. HP's keys they're large. They have a lot of travel, which is, again, something you don't see a lot of 13 inches these days. The audio is really good. Now, they did have to move the speakers. They had 4 speakers before, 2 in the top, 2 in the bottom. They had to just keep 2 in the bottom now because they shrank down the footprint of the device so much because they reduced HP's big issue last year was their display bezels were just monstrous. And now they went from like 17 millimeters to 6 millimeters. Like it's just a massive drop. But the problem when you do that is you chop down the size of the deck of the keyboard, which has to match the display size. So I was actually concerned about that. It's not a concern. The audio on here is still super good. They've gotten so good with their Bang & Olufsen stuff, and these are amplified speakers, just really good audio. Battery life, I said, is good. Processing, storage. The performance is really good. It's typical for a 13-inch Ultrabook. It's not exceptional. Their thermals are okay. You do get Thunderbolt 3, two Type-C ports. But they also kept the Type-A port, and that's something that's going away on a lot of devices. Yeah. And how they did it, they have a drop jaw system on it. So it's really thin, and then you pull the little jaw down. I'm okay with this. I mean, the problem, I'm laughing because Type-A ports, what's the joke? You have like a 50-50 shot of actually getting it right, when you plug in thing. And if that's the odds, right? But we all know from experience, it feels like 90-10 with 90% you're going to fail. So take that experience and now add a moving jaw system to it. Like it's frustrating.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's better than not to have it, right? So cool. And I thought it was a clever solution, so it's fine. Now, the only thing I don't like about this laptop is the display. If it was 16 by 10, what Dell is doing, this would be killer. And it's not just because I prefer a taller display, and I think it looks better, because that's a huge part of it. But when you go 16 by 10, you make it taller, you now have to extend the keyboard deck, which gives you more room to rest your palms on, which feels better when you're typing, and your trackpad can be taller. Now, that's the other thing. The Spectre this is the first Spectre that uses precision touchpad. Another big complaint of mine has been fixed. So this is actually a good trackpad.
Finally.
It's a little narrow in terms of how tall it is, but again, that goes back to because they're using 16 by 9.
Yep.
They use 16 by 10, they would get probably an extra half inch, and that would make a huge difference. So this is why I'm really encouraging them to switch over to 16 by 10. It's just benefits all around.
You've almost done it. You've almost made HP.
I know.
Build a good laptop. Well, I mean, they were good anyway, but like the perfect laptop.
And another checkbox, they offer a 4G LTE option.
Wow, that is actually pretty good.
And again, a lot of people here don't care, shrug. For me, that's big. Like if this had 16 by 9 and I could get LTE on it, I mean, that to me is basically the perfect laptop. They do have they have the web camera on top. It does have Windows Hello IR to get face recognition login. They also give you a fingerprint reader, which is cool because more is better. And that actually makes sense too, because they have a physical switch on the side, which kills the webcam for privacy. So if you kill the webcam, you're also going to kill your Windows Hello IR. But you can now use your fingerprint reader to log in, so problem solved. They also have a physical button now to mute the microphone, which lights up with an LED. So if you're really kind of concerned about privacy, that's why all that stuff is there. But I don't love the gem cut design. And I know that's kind of like controversial in the sense that I think a lot of people do like it. I think it's a little too flashy and gaudy for me. But that's subjective. I'm not going to ding them for that really. But it is what it is. Now, to compare it to the XPS 13 2-in-1, I actually prefer the XPS 13 2-in-1, despite everything I just said. The problem is it's more expensive. It's at least $300 more, and that's not inconsequential. And with that $300 more, that's just the price. You still don't get a pen. You still don't get a leather case with the XPS 13. But the XPS 13 2-in-1, I just like the look of it, and it has that 16 by 10, and the performance is slightly better. I hesitate mentioning that because I don't think in this class of device, the performance gains you get from the Dell, it's going to it doesn't make a world of difference. It's not like you can feel it when you're using it. I'm just technically speaking, that's true. But I think, so I think Dells look better. I kind of like the Dell keyboard. They have the taller trackpad. Again, this is stuff with the 16 by 10. But no Type-A port, no LTE option with Dell. So it's literally depends on what your pros and cons are and what you want in a device. These are both, I recommend both. But obviously the HP one is the one that's more affordable. So for a lot of people, it's going to matter. Like you get the same hardware for $300 less. And in fact, if you maxed it out, you just went crazy. I want 4K, and you can't get 4K in LTE, which stinks. But say you want 4K, 2 terabyte drive, Core i7, 16 gigs. If you max it out, it's like $1,900. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Because the Dells, Lenovo's, and Surface devices can go over $2,000 easily, right? So,
I think Surface Book reaches almost $3,000, I'm sure.
Yeah. So don't Razors. And someone's asking, how's the color accuracy? Yeah. So all this info is in the review. If you want to go read it, Windows Central. The color accuracy is, I believe, it was 100% sRGB, 81% Adobe RGB, and I even have, I think it was 78% DCI-P3. None of that's extraordinary for this class because everybody's gotten good with this stuff. But it is a pretty color accurate screen, and it gets pretty bright too. It gets over 400 nits. Yeah, it's a good display. It's just, if I had to buy this, I would not buy the 4K. I think, like I said, 4K at 13-inch to me is overkill, and the benefits. It looks amazing. Don't get me wrong. It's 4K OLED. I should point that out.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. So
that's
I mean,
nice.
if you're really into the visual stuff, go get it, right? But I think most listen. I use a full HD version. I don't have the 4K OLED, although I may ask him for a review copy if you guys are really interested. I'm totally fine with the full HD version. So, but that's me. So go check that out. All right. Speaking of Spectre, unless we'll get to your review of Windows 10 in a sec. I just want to keep this going with the laptop
Sure,
stuff.
yeah.
I do have. Let me get it here. The Asus ROG Zephyrus G14,
Wow.
and yeah, look, this is a laptop here, folks. This is
It's a
this is
laptop.
quite it's quite the creation. It's made for gamers. It's made for people age 15 to 25. I pointed out to me it's kind of funny because I'm clearly not that age group, and because I think it looks amazing on the outside. When you open it up, it's a little. It's
Gamery.
a little too gamery for me, but it's not bad. But what makes this laptop special? It's 14-inch, 3.5 pounds. It's solidly built. Like it's just there's no flex to it. Really cut nice corners on it. It's just handsome looking. But this is powered by AMD's new Ryzen 9 4900HS processor, and that's a lot of stuff right there. This is to compete with Intel's Core i9 that's in laptops. The difference being this can be run as a gaming laptop. So the Core i9 for Intel has only showed up in like the Dell XPS 15 and I believe another Asus product, but it's mostly been in productivity, not for gaming because the i9 gets so hot it can't maintain speeds, which is terrible if you game or even video editing. Not in this baby. The Ryzen 9 not only can maintain thermals pretty well without throttling, it destroys the Core i9 in performance, especially on Cinebench, where it beat it by like 1,000 points. Yeah, listen, if you listen to this podcast, I've, given a lot of criticism to AMD for its 3000 series. I thought they were not good. Actually, I'll take that back. They're very good for budget laptops. And I do have the new Honor MagicBook 14, which is a $650 laptop, which is powered by the Ryzen 3 5000 or 3005 series. That's an awesome processor for that device. I thought the Ryzen 3000 was terrible for a premium laptop. It doesn't hold a candle to 10th gen. This though is this is a serious machine here. I mean, this first of all, this is 8-core, which is it's one of the first 8 cores. Now Intel announced some 8-core stuff too this week and they had the i9, which was 8-core, but this is 8-core, 16 threads. It's got a lot of cache on it. It's also paired with the RTX 2060 Max-Q GPU, which is a really good GPU, right? If they went any bigger than that, you start really getting into thermals. But this is all packed into a 14-inch laptop, and no one's done that before, right? There are no 14-inch laptops that are 8-core with an RTX graphics card in it that can actually handle the thermals. And that's what makes this amazing. It has a 120 hertz, 14-inch full HD matte display. Been some criticism the display's response time is slower than it should be. I haven't noticed it, but you could possibly get some more ghosting. But that's literally the only complaint. Even the audio on this thing is actually pretty good. I'll be doing a more full review of it probably next week or something like that. But yeah, AMD, like, listen, there's a lot of hope here. And now a lot of people are going to ask, like, are they going to put AMD chips in Microsoft Surface devices? It's a good question. I think they probably will. I could see, I don't know, this chip doesn't make sense in Surface Book 3. Surface Book 3, unless they changed anything about it significantly, you're still putting a processor behind the LCD display along with all the other components. And that's really thin. Yeah, I don't think they can do the thermals. There are, though, other AMD Ryzen 4000 series chips that they may be able to use and control the TDP and put them in there. I'll be very interested to see if that happens. But yeah, this could actually be the year for AMD taking on Intel. Now, Intel, to their credit, announced 10th gen processors this week. This is the 45-watt class, which we haven't seen yet. And the story here is they basically ramped up the clock speed. And it's not insignificant. It went from like about 4.5 gigahertz to like 5.1 or 5.3 gigahertz, which is, that's crazy for a laptop. Everybody wants to know, though, can the thermals handle this kind of stuff? I don't know. I think people are right in saying AMD is coming at them hard now on laptops, and they're going to just beat them in terms of cores. And I don't mean cores on the high end. So, all right, I just told you about the Ryzen 9. That's the high end, right? But they got the Ryzen 7, which is, I believe, is also 8 core, and then the Ryzen 5, which I believe is 6 core. Like their lowest end chip is a quad core. Intel still isn't doing that. So yeah, AMD's, I'm pretty excited about this because it's going to offer more opportunities for manufacturers and all that kind of stuff. But go check out the Asus. It's pretty impressive.
A few people in the chat are once again asking, what Asus laptop is it? Just the name.
Yes, so it is called the Asus ROG Zephyrus G14. It is technically now available, at least in Europe, but it's limited stock. It'll be hard to find. It's coming out now and over the next few weeks and months. Obviously, production is kind of an issue. I will be, for those curious, getting my hands on, I won't name the device right now, but the U series version of these new Ryzen 4000 chips. So these are the ones in like what would be called Ultrabooks, but that's an Intel name, so we'll just call them slim notebooks. And those two are going to take on Intel's 10th gen stuff. So that's going to be the other half of this. That's the stuff you would probably see in like a Surface laptop or Surface Pro device. I don't know if those will be the case, but we'll be getting those in soon. So yeah, the Asus ROG Zephyrus G14. It's I like it. It's good keyboard. Like, yeah, it's a fun device. Like, now the battery life, I think Linus Tech Tips, I heard someone say that they said, so I don't know if they actually said this, it's like 10 hours. I definitely do not think that's the case. This is more like 5 or 6 hours for battery life, which isn't terrible. It's got a big size battery, but don't forget, this is a gaming laptop. So I never really have high expectations for battery life, but I'll be doing more tests over that as I use it more. So
nice.
Someone's asking, would I use the Ryzen 7 or i7? I mean, right now, I don't think, unfortunately, you have a lot of choice on laptops to choose between the two of those. But I might go for the Ryzen. I don't know. I got to try the Ryzen 7s to see how they are compared. It's tough, but I'll just say right now the AMD stuff, the new Ryzen 4000 series, both the 15, 25, and 45 watt, 35, it's looking very promising. That's all I can tell you right now. But until we get more information, I do more testing. I don't want to commit too much.
Nice.
Whew.
So,
all right, now tell us about Windows 10.
Yes, I shall. So Windows 10 20H1, also known as version 2004, it still isn't out yet, but it's been done since December, more or less. And this is the version of Windows that went into development early 2019, I think it was, maybe even a bit before that. I can't remember off the top of my head now, but it's been in development for a long time, and Microsoft has more or less sort of been sitting on it since December. They've been servicing it with security updates and bug fixes and stuff since December, of course. They're basically servicing it like a production version of Windows 10, but it hasn't been released yet. I believe they were supposed to release it in April. The original plan was they were going to release it to the release preview ring in March. Then it was going to start rolling out GA in April. That didn't happen because of the whole ongoing pandemic and people working from home and Microsoft not wanting to push out a brand new version of Windows during a time where everyone's depending on their PCs working successfully. So there's a lot of things at play here as to why when Microsoft hasn't pushed out version 2004 yet. But I am hearing it is still coming at some point. But we don't have a name. So version 2004 is what I've got to be calling it for this and throughout my review, which I published this week. And it's a good update. It's pretty much standard for Windows 10 updates these days, meaning there's not a lot in it. There's one sort of big change, and everything has sort of minor improvements and enhancements. And I think that's most people prefer that these days. I know back in the day we used to complain about there not being any big features, but we've sort of gotten used to it at this point, to the point where I'm actually happy just to see Microsoft improve fit and finish over adding new features. I just want Windows to be consistent when it comes to UI, and Microsoft has sort of done a little bit of work around that as well with this release. But first of all, let's talk about the big change with version 2004, and that is, of course, the new Cortana experience. Now, I describe this as one step forward, one step back for Cortana, because yes, it's a brand new Cortana. Yes, it's now an app which can be updated via the Microsoft Store, so it's no longer dependent on Windows updates. And yes, it has a brand new UI that is very keyboard focused, and I think looks way better than the old Cortana on Windows did. But there's also a regression in features as a result. For example, you can no longer access the Cortana notebook, and you cannot use consumer-based skills or commands. So say if you use Cortana, if you use an Invoke, for example, to control your lights and appliances, you can't use Cortana on your PC to do that. You can still use it on the Invoke for now. Who knows how long that will last. But on your PC, you can no longer do that. It's now limited exclusively to work-related commands and sort of general trivia and all that good stuff. So what's my schedule like? How tall is Mount Everest? I mean, you can still ask it to tell you a joke for some reason, but it won't it won't turn on your lights. It will say, sorry, I can't do that no more. And I realize I know where Microsoft is. I know what they're doing here. They're trying to reposition Cortana as a productivity assistant, but Cortana is the only assistant on Windows 10. It's not like Android and iOS where you have Siri and you have all these other things to sort of fall back on if Cortana can't do something. Cortana is the only. I know you can download Alexa. That doesn't count. Cortana is the native and only digital assistant on Windows 10, and it can't do these consumer-based commands. It's almost as if Microsoft forgot that people aren't always about their work lives. People come home from work, they go on their computers, they want to watch Netflix. People are human beings. They're not all about wanting to check schedules and emails and all of that stuff. So Cortana can't do a lot of the sort of consumer-based stuff anymore on Windows 10. I think that's a real shame. But overall, the new UI and stuff, I really do like. I think it's a huge improvement for Cortana. And if only it could do the consumer stuff, I think a lot of people would really enjoy this new update. It's like playing music. It can't play music, for example. You can't say, hey, play this latest song or whatever. It just won't do it. You can tell it's to open Spotify, but then you have to manually go in and, choose your songs and all of that stuff. So that's sort of a quick overview of the new Cortana. Again, one step forward, one step back. The UI is great. It supports dark mode, which I think is really nice. And there are there's a couple of bugs with it I've noticed as well. It is in beta still, so I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. But for example, when you open it for the first time, it will sort of open because it's an app now. It will sort of sit on top of the taskbar. But then when you press close on it, it doesn't close because it still needs to listen for the hey command for Cortana. So when you press X on the window, it will disappear, but it's still running in Task Manager. And if you open up Task View, you can actually still see the window. And clicking on the X in there doesn't actually close it. That's going to really annoy normal people who think that their computer isn't working properly now because they can't close the stupid Cortana app. Microsoft needs to figure out a way to sort of hide it from Task Manager and Task View, which isn't in the builds just yet, but which is fine because 2004 isn't out yet, so they've still got time to fix it. Other notable changes and improvements in this release: virtual desktops can be renamed now and save across reboots. Surprisingly, they didn't do this before, but you can now rename them, and those names will save across reboots. So, say for example, you have one workspace for office and work-related stuff, another workspace for gaming and Netflix and Discord and all that stuff. You can have your two different workspaces. You can name them as such, and when you reboot, those windows will actually remember where they were and open up in the correct ones, which is a nice improvement for those who use virtual desktops. I've never been able to fit virtual desktops into my workflow. I don't know if you have, Dan, but I always forget that they're there. Improved settings. So as is the case with every new version of Windows 10, Microsoft has added more stuff from the old control panel to the new settings out. Things like cursor speed and control and stuff. They've also improved a number of settings that were already in the new modern settings app. For example, inside the sign-in options area, there's now an option to turn off your Microsoft account password as a login method on the lock screen. Now, at first glance, I think a lot of people would think, why would I want to do that? And the reason you would is because it's technically more secure. Your Microsoft account password is universal across all of your different Microsoft devices. So if an attacker gets access to that password and gets access to one of your devices, they can log in and steal your data, or worse. If you remove the Microsoft account password as a login method, even if they get access to that password, they cannot log into your devices with it. They're forced to use Windows Hello or a PIN. And that's harder to steal, so it's technically more secure. And this is actually on by default. If you have a device with Windows Hello, and you've set that up, by default your password will no longer be used as a logon method on the lock screen. You won't be able to, when you're on the lock screen, if you try to type in your password, the option to do it just won't be there. You have the option for the face, fingerprint, security key, or PIN. and that's it. And I actually really like that change. I think it's a nice improvement to security. They've also streamlined Swift Pair. So Swift Pair, for those who don't know, is a feature they introduced in 1903, I think it was, where essentially it's like Apple's or Samsung's one-click to pair feature, where you open up an accessory and it pops up on the screen, and you press connect and you're done. Windows has that as well in the form of Swift Pair. But in 1903 and 1909, when you click on connect, it would actually pull up the settings app, pull up a dialog that says connecting, and then you'd have to press OK once it's connected to confirm. So it's not one click, it's technically 2 or 3 clicks. In 2004, it is one click. So you press on connect, and instead of opening settings, it just doesn't do that no more. The notification will say connecting, and then when it's done, it will say success, and then the notification will disappear. So they've streamlined that experience, which is nice to see. They've also added a couple more devices that support Swift Pair, because not all devices do, unfortunately. So not every accessory you have that's Bluetooth capable will show up in the Swift Pair pop-up. If it doesn't, then you will have to go into settings and manually pair. But otherwise, if you do have a Swift Pair accessory, that experience is way better now. For power users, Microsoft has added a couple things to Task Manager. You can now see your GPU temperature if you're using a dedicated GPU which supports WWDM 2.4 or higher. So if you're somebody who needs to keep an eye on your temperature, if you're playing a game or rendering something, you can do that through the Task Manager without having to download a third-party app now, which is great. And for those who are less techie in the Task Manager now, you can see which type your disk is. As if you have multiple disks, underneath those disks will be the type of storage it is, so SSD or HDD or removable. So if you're somebody who needs to figure that information out, you can do that straight through Task Manager now, rather than having to search up serial numbers and whatever else to find that out, if you don't want to open your device, that is. There's also a new search UI. Now, I'm not going to talk about this too much because this was technically backported to 1909 and 1903. So, essentially, the TLDR is along the bottom now. There's quick searches. So, for things like top news, latest weather reports, and all that stuff, you just click on it and it will search Bing for that. There's also a new Bing image search button, which allows you to take a screenshot, and then that will just automatically search Bing with that screenshot. Great for if you don't know what an object is and you want to find out more information about it. And there's also the Microsoft Rewards points indicator at the top of the search UI now as well. So if you are a Microsoft Rewards collector, you can see your points at a glance without having to launch the Microsoft Rewards website, which I think is pretty nice. And that's basically the big sort of changes with 2004. Like I said, not really a huge update. The biggest change, of course, is Cortana being an app now with a new user interface. But other than that, it's more or less just improvements to things that have already been part of Windows for some time. Lots of fit and finish improvements. Action Center doesn't pop in and out with its blur effect anymore. The blur effect is there when the animation begins, except they've sort of cheated. Again, if you're not somebody who notices design, you will not notice this, but the blur effect behind the Action Center isn't live when the animation is playing. It takes a screenshot and then just places it, blurs it, and then pulls it along with the Action Center. But it looks fine, I think. Although it is cheating. Microsoft, fix it. Please fix it. But otherwise, yeah, this is... I think it's a good update. I think most people are going to enjoy it, because I don't think many people use Cortana on PC anyway at this point. So any changes to Cortana will go unnoticed. Although it does show up in the apps list now, which I think people will notice, and they will try to uninstall it only to find you can't. The uninstall button for Cortana is not there. I wonder if they will add that at some point. I'd be surprised if they don't.
Sorry, I was typing. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really using... I still use Cortana once in a while just to set a calendar meeting or something like that, a reminder.
Yeah. That's all it's good for now. It's for work-related stuff. Like, if I want to turn my lights on, turn my Xbox on, it can't bloody do it.
And those are things, again, that
I know you don't.
I never did that stuff, so no loss for me.
I gave up on my Invoke this week because obviously the Invoke never launched outside the US, so me using it here in the UK anyway was a botch job from the beginning. But over the last few updates or whatever they've been doing to Cortana and Android and iOS, the experience has just gotten worse and worse. I can't even set it up properly anymore. The setup process will fail. It will fail like 2 times, and it will succeed, but then I can't edit the device anymore, so I can't change the name or change the sound on it. And I can't add skills to it no more. If I try to add a skill, the Cortana would just say no. Or even if it does add it, I would try to activate the skill and it will say, sorry, we can't do that. So I think Microsoft is either hammering down on the outside US support that it never had to begin with anyway, or they're just because it's not supported anymore, really. Things are just breaking and no one's seeing them and fixing them, which is a shame. So I got an Alexa thingy-mabob, I shouldn't have said the name. I got the Echo Studio, which is the premium one that they do. And honestly, I actually think it's a better speaker than the Invoke. The Invoke, I know Invoke's all about, Harman Kardon's all about premium audio and stuff, but I think the Studio beats the Invoke. It sounds great, the Echo Studio.
Interesting. You know what, and I don't think this actually, I'm pretty sure is not part of this update, but it's something I discovered recently. I actually kind of appreciate the new search box on Windows 10. Is when you when you click it and a little sub window pops up and it has like apps, documents, web, more. It shows you, which is boring to me, my points that I've collected. But what a neat feature that I kind of didn't know was there, and I find super useful, is in the lower right hand corner you'll see a little the little target, and it allows you to click it, and allows you to use a snipping tool to screen cap whatever it is, and then does a Bing image search. That's actually been a lot of fun to use.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned that in my review. It's great for people who, if you see an image of something on the internet and you don't know what it is, or you want to know more about it, you can just quickly screen clip it.
Car. Although I did do, that if you saw it, I shared it in our Telegram, that dog and the baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, the baby cuddling the dog. So this dog looks like a stuffed animal in there, right? So I actually did do a Bing search for it, and it showed up the results were all teddy bears, which I think is kind of funny. I never did learn a dog breed, but still, it's definitely a feature I kind of know was there, but I super fun. Sometimes I see things I'm like, what backpack is that? What's and it just does a reverse image search. I think that stuff is pretty cool.
Yeah. While we're on the subject of Windows 10 real quick, actually just to round up the review, again, we don't know when it's coming. I would guess it will be still springtime. I think it will be May. I think they'll call it the May update, May or June update at this point. But yeah, it will definitely be made available at some point for users to manually download, because they do that anyway now, right? Don't they? When they release a new version of Windows 10, it's never pushed on users. It's now available to download if you want it, and then in 12 to 18 months we will push it on you. So yeah, I expect the same to happen with 2004, which is a full build update, by the way. It's not like 1909, which was a cumulative update on top of 1903. Version 2004 is a full-blown new release of Windows 10, so we'll download, and it will take a little while to install as well. But on the subject of Windows 10, real quick, Microsoft re-released the that design video that panel sort of showed off on Instagram a couple of weeks ago. We did talk about it on the podcast. That was the video where they showed off the new UI for Windows 10, or at least they proposed a new UI for Windows 10. So they released the video again in high quality now, so you can actually see what they're showing off in more detail, which is nice. But there's some notable differences in this video. For one, they actually got rid of the new File Explorer in the higher quality version and replaced it with with Microsoft Edge. And they also got rid of the context menus that they showed off as well. So in the Panos Panay video, you have the new context menus. There's a Ink Workspace UI that they show off in there as well, and obviously the new File Explorer in very low resolution, so it's hard to actually see anything, but it is in there. But with the higher quality version, those three things are gone, which I think is pretty interesting. Why would they remove them? I don't know, but they've done that, and that's worrying because it means that they don't want to do it. Or something, I don't know what it means, but yeah, they've removed those, which is a shame.
That's the Lucas at it. Greedo shoots first. Yeah, it's all good stuff. I don't know. I've been using Windows 10 on the slow ring on many of my devices now, and yeah, so far so
I just
good.
wish they'd bring it to release preview ring. This thing should have been in a release preview ring 2 months ago.
Probably.
I don't know why it's not there yet.
Yeah. And I guess quickly we'll round up here. Minecraft Dungeons, just real quickly. This is it's interesting when, Microsoft acquires properties and they look at ways to extending it. We're seeing this with the new Gears Tactics game that's coming out, which is a different take on the Gears of War franchise. That actually looks pretty fun too. They also did it with the Gears Pop, which I admit I tried for about 5 minutes and I was like, all right, this isn't for me. But Minecraft Dungeons looks to be really sort of interesting. It's sort of a Diablo-esque game where you don't have a first-person point of view. It's more the top-down 3D, third-person kind of view. And you're part of the Minecraft world, but now you actually have a kind of like missions and all this kind of stuff. And we used to do on this channel, at least on Mixer, MGLs, Microsoft Gaming and Libations. The idea was Zach, me, and Jez Corden would sit around, have a beer, and play Minecraft because it was a chill game where we could talk and have fun and all this kind of stuff. And for various reasons, Jez Corden backed out from it. But dungeons may fill the void here. This game actually looks a lot of fun. Jez did you can see it on our YouTube channel right now, a video walkthrough of it where he shows actual gameplay footage, and he explains how it all works together and how you work on your weapons and your class of your character and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, it's kind of like an arcade version of Minecraft, which, for me is, I don't like games where I get them, but they're not for me. Games where it's like, we made basically this game is just a level editor. Like, go make your own game. And this is why I haven't bought Animal Crossing yet, despite all the hype around that. And I know people really enjoy it, but the more I see that game, I'm like, I just know that's not for me. And that's where Minecraft always was like, you just go around and build stuff. I'm like, but why? Like, I don't get it. This game has like guides you, right? It's a plot. It's got like goals and missions and all this kind of stuff. I do have it installed on this computer here. I guess even installs on the Pro X because that'll be interesting. I haven't played it yet because this just happens. It's in closed beta right now, so sorry, you don't get to try it. It was supposed to come out in April, but it's been pushed back now, I believe, to May 26th because of the COVID-19 coronavirus thing and delays with developments. But it'll be part of the Microsoft Game Pass thing and all this kind of stuff. But I believe it's going to be on Switch. It's going to be on, I think it's on PlayStation, Xbox, PC. It's going to be kind of like everywhere and all this kind of stuff. But I don't know. This looks like a cool game because I do appreciate and like the Minecraft world and the look of it. And I think it's funny and like, but this looks like a way for me to get into this game because I really do love, I'm a classic arcade side scroller, roguelike type player. So I'm hoping this kind of fills that. But if you're curious about my thoughts on it, follow me on Twitter, Daniel_Rubino, as I'll probably be tweeting out, sharing clips and all this and my thoughts of it. You'll be able to get your hands on it, like I said, in late May. It would have been nice if this was out now, as again, I think it's been an opportune time. That said, I think we'll probably be under lockdown for a little while at least, so maybe you'll still be able to do that. Zach, what are your thoughts of this game and what you've seen of it so far?
I think it looks good. Do we know if it's on Xbox as well? I assume it is, but the beta's on PC, right?
So the beta's on PC, but yeah, it's coming to, as far as I know, all the major systems. So definitely Xbox, definitely Switch, which would be fun too.
Oh yeah, so. That is nice. Yeah,
yeah, it makes sense on the Switch. Yeah. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun there.
I wonder if it'll come to phones. That'd be nice. I guess xCloud technically.
If you wait a second, maybe I'll tell you because I have a link somewhere that kind of shows you this stuff. Although I'm probably already logged in. But yeah.
Yeah, it looks good. I'm excited for it.
Yep. Let's see what the sign me up says. Oh. I'll have to do this in the give me 2 seconds. Now I'm really curious.
I'm going to try and stop for time. Let's see. What can we talk about? I saw a few people asking questions about you got it?
No, I don't. It's on all the systems. That's
all of them. PS5, everything.
Yes, your Amiga system, it'll be on there too.
Yes. I think that's pretty much it. That was quite a long one for this week.
There was surprisingly a lot of news this week.
I hope there's no news next week.
Monday was really rough. We had a ton of embargoes Monday, including the AMD stuff.
We messed up one of them. Sorry.
Yeah, and then I don't know what happened with that. It's no big deal. And then Intel and the 10th gen stuff. Oh yeah, and NVIDIA Super Graphics, RTX Super. So 25% improvement over those. Those are those new laptops. Oh yeah, I didn't talk about that. So the 10th gen stuff. Everybody announced new laptops, or refreshes, I should say. Razer, Asus, MSI, and Lenovo. And you can check that out, Windows Central. I won't go through all of them. I'll focus on Razer because they did some. I think they're just kind of the big name here, but their Blade 15, both advanced and the basic model. I think it's called base model. Are getting the new 10th gen stuff, new 10th gen 45 watt processors, RTX Super Graphics, and the advanced model. They're jumping on the 300 hertz display bandwagon, which I think is silly. There's very few games you're going to hit 300 frames per second. And I mean, I run some pretty serious hardware. I barely, first person shooters, I've barely ever hit 140 frames per second, even with an RTX 2080. But it's there, whatever. They do offer, of course, 4K OLED as an option if you want that too. They do have they brought SD card slot in the Razer Blade Advance, which is nice if you're a photo and video person. The Blade 15 now does something that the MacBook Pro doesn't do, which is gives you an SD card slot, which is huge for those people. Yeah, and the base models actually looks really good too. So they took away the mini display port, gave you another Type C port. They got rid of the hard disk drive, thankfully, and they just give you an SD drive. I think it's 256 or 512. I forgot that. No, it might be 512 and 1 TB. And there's a second slot open, which means you can add even more memory there, which is cool. They bumped, what's really nice in the base model is before that had the 60 hertz display, and now it comes as default with 144 hertz full HD. And you can get the 4K OLED option on the base model now too, which I thought was super cool. But, until we get these, we won't know. But long story short is they're faster and better than last year's model, around 25% supposedly. And it's kind of cool. This gaming stuff is always getting more and more powerful. I also mentioned, what is it? Is it Asus? Who does the dual screen one? I'm so bad at these names.
It's Asus, yeah.
Yeah, Asus is the dual screen one. So, last year they had it. It's a full display. Then it has a smaller display below it. Now that display pops up at an angle, which looks so much cooler. Like it's so much more useful because the problem was before it's kind of flat, so you'd have to kind of like look down and look up. But now with it popped up, it obviously gives you a better viewing angle, and it's a touch screen, of course, too. So the problem with that device set design is the keyboard doesn't have anywhere for your wrist to lay, which is probably not going to be very comfortable. And the trackpad is on the right-hand side, which if you're left-handed, I don't know what to tell you. But it's an interesting looking device. I threw it out there on Twitter as like, I'd love to see the Surface team sort of tackle this. I mean, maybe it's the Neo, but the Neo is the performance on it's going to be severely capped compared to this thing, which runs a new 10th gen 45 watt chip. So, but go check all those out. Those will be coming out in the next couple of weeks and months if you're into gaming and just want faster. I'll say there's still more announcements coming. I won't mention the company, but there's a few new other laptops that are coming out. I think Lenovo has stuff that's going to be coming out, and I believe
new Macs, yay!
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if Razer updates some other devices. So, I know money's tight for a lot of people, but if you're holding off on a laptop, wait a couple more weeks, and that's it. All right, now we're done. Now, wow, 90 minutes. And my voice held up. Thank you, humidifier, to that. Anyway, let's wrap it up. We're going to do Q&A now. So if you have questions of things we didn't ask or talk about in the podcast, start firing them off during my spiel here, and then we'll read those. If you're listening to this recorded, of course, you don't get to hear that exciting stuff. I apologize. It would just make this podcast even longer and weirder. But you're always free to join us Fridays, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Mixer.com/Windows Central. You can also join us on YouTube.com and our Windows Central page there as well. And we always encourage you to hop in and join us. And you can see us live and our video and all that kind of stuff. Otherwise, follow me at Twitter, Daniel_Rubino, Rubino. Same thing on Instagram. You can follow Zach at ZACBOWDEN. And as always, we thank you for joining us and be safe out there. Take care, everyone.
Awesome. First question, when will we see Windows 10 X on single-screen devices? You'll see it later this year when it launches on the Lenovo Fold, because that's technically a single screen. I think what you're asking is when we see it on non-foldable form factors. And the answer is we don't know. We know Microsoft wants to do it. Windows 10 X is definitely possible. It's definitely capable of running on devices like laptops and normal tablets, but there's no ETA for that. If I had to guess, I'd say 2021, 2022 time. With the technology as is now, the Neo and Duo look kind of outdated, don't you think? A lot of people do think this. The bezels, for one, they are pretty thick for a 2020 device. Obviously, when it comes to the Duo, no 5G, last year's processor, no NFC, no wireless charging, all of that stuff, which I've heard is not part of the Duo. That is definitely stuff that a lot of people are going to look at and go, what the hell, why? This is 2020, what's going on? But it's hard to defend. Don't get me wrong. I'm not defending it, but It is a first-gen device, and Microsoft has been working on the Neo and Duo for quite a while.
Yeah, I think there's a legit point that a lot of people make, which is I always skip first gen and wait for third or something similar to that. And there's, you know, actual legit reasons or rationale for skipping a first gen device. And that's what these are. They're going to have bugs or, maybe not even bugs, but the experience may not be completely tweaked. There's a huge difference between testing something in a lab for even a couple of years and then putting it out there in the market and getting feedback on how to improve it. Like, I don't think the Surface team, expects a device to go out there and be like, we nailed this from the start. They try as much as they can, but I'm sure they're very curious about actually letting people use it and try it, getting feedback on it so they can improve it, because that's what they thrive off of. And any engineer with their chops will say the same thing. So these complaints about Duo and Neo, I think, are valid, and it's fine. I think the thing is, we need to get, like, Zach and I are going to get these devices. Obviously, I'm sure some of you in this audience will get them too. But yeah, it's just like my Galaxy Z Flip. It's, we're kind of beta testers. We're early adopters. All those complaints, though, can be refined. If you go back into 2012 and 2013, you look at the beginning of convertible laptops. We had ones that spun around with screens that flipped on a single axis. Dell had one that flipped around within a frame. There were all sorts of, what was it? Asus, I think, had one where the screen came forward, which has actually kind of come back again. There were all sorts of weird experiments, and they didn't all pan out, right? Like, we don't have a laptop today that has a display that spins around on a single axis, which is weird. But at the time when you looked at it, I think it was Lenovo had one that was like that. When you looked at it, it's like, oh, that's actually kind of neat, because you would flip the screen around, close it back down, and now it was like a tablet PC. Like, it actually kind of made sense. So it's fine on these devices if they're not kind of perfect from, the get-go. I think that's sort of the point. And I'm pretty positive Microsoft's expectations are we want to get enough of these out there so people give us feedback, but we want to then incorporate all that and make a version 2. And by version 3, that's when it all kind of, like, that should be what everybody kind of really wants. But that happens anytime we create a new device category, right? I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah. Why did Microsoft let Cortana languish for consumers? What's the core story? I think the core story really is Windows Phone died. Without that core mobile platform, which people bring with them everywhere, you don't have a market to sort of build out a digital assistant, because that's where digital assistants really got started, on phones. And without Windows Phone, Microsoft didn't have a foot there to sort of play when it comes to Cortana. And that's what ultimately killed it, I think.
Would it make sense for the Surface laptop to get the AMD 4900 chips? So these are, I presume you're talking about the U series 4000. Not the Ryzen 9s. Ryzen 9 does not make sense on a Surface laptop. I think the thermals will be too constrained. The 15-watt chips, though, for the new U series possibly does, make sense. It definitely makes more sense than the Ryzen 3000 series. Because I think it's probably safe to say that AMDs do get better performance all around, especially on the discrete GPU, right? There are smaller questions, though, including things like resume times and battery life and standby and all this kind of stuff. And the fact, I mean, so far we haven't really seen AMD stuff with Thunderbolt 3. That actually, I chuckle because that works in favor of Microsoft, who has a dumb Thunderbolt 3. So problem solved there. I will say the resume times on the the Asus laptop here, the Zephyrus G14, it's actually been good. I've actually been happy with it. So there's a lot of promise here with the AMD stuff. I haven't used enough to completely say it beats Intel across the board, especially this is only one class of processor, the 45, 35 watt range, not the U series. But like I said, it's looking promising. I'm sure Microsoft is testing these. I'm sure they have various Surface devices, one with AMD, one with Intel, and they're looking at that stuff. So I think you'll see more of that. That doesn't mean they're going to switch all to AMD. I think Microsoft wants to spread the love around. They want a little ARM, they want a little Intel, a little AMD. Intel is still going to be good for pro devices and business users. So there's that. But it's going to be an interesting year, I think, for AMD, and I'm really excited about that.
Daniel, has there been any thought of you being a guest on future Twit's AMA? Assuming that the something something. They're doing an AMA apparently.
Yeah, I believe that's for their regular hosts, which I'm not. I've never been asked to be a regular host on any of their programs. I'm a guest host that fills in sometimes on This Week in Technology, which goes on Sundays. I used to sometimes appear on Windows Weekly, but I don't think The Rod likes me that much. I don't know. So I'm open to the idea, but they haven't asked me to be a permanent guest on those shows. And there's already, Windows Weekly is already big, and I don't think I'm not sure there's enough room for another Windows one that they would want to do. But obviously I'm here. I love, Leo's a great guy. I love the productions that they do there. And it's always humbling and fun to be on those shows. But yeah, I'm sure I'll be on again on Twit at some point. So you can, if you want, tweet them. You can tweet Leo and a Twit and hey, get me on there. It's fine. I won't say no.
Would the Windows 10X replace Windows 10, and what's going to happen to Cortana on Android? Windows 10X is not going to replace Windows 10. Windows 10 is sticking around and will be the primary version of Windows for many years to come. Regarding Cortana on Android, it is going away. Microsoft has announced that it will eventually go away, I'm pretty sure. No ETA for that, though. It's going away in the Microsoft launcher already, so if you use Cortana to the Microsoft launcher, that's going to be gone by the end of this month. I think the dedicated app will stick around for a bit longer, but once the dedicated wearables app is out for things like the Surface headphones and Surface earbuds, I think you'll see Cortana go away, because the reason Cortana has to stick around right now is because that's the only app you can use to set up your headphones on your smartphone. But once that dedicated app is out, I don't think there'll be any need for Cortana to remain.
So I was asking, is the Xbox Series X still on track for later this year? Yes, as far as we know. There was some reports earlier, including Satya Nadella, saying that their production line and it's looks like to be intact. And we did see some China opening up again. And I don't want to get to the controversy about the COVID stuff and the numbers reporting, which seems to be true too. But a lot of the factories aren't in Wuhan in that area or have been moved and all this kind of stuff. And we are seeing some production still going on. Intel, AMD have both, and I believe NVIDIA too, have gone on record saying we're doing okay for production of our chipsets and everything. So the supply lines and the companies that make the chips all seem to be in place. So it does seem to be the case. And this gets into, I think Microsoft is still in a better position than Sony in terms of bringing this stuff to market now and have fewer hurdles to tackle. We still haven't seen Sony's. There's been speculation, some rumors about them having heating issues because they're trying to overclock their chips to basically catch up a little bit to Microsoft. So how that plays out, as of now, it seems to be the case. But, as I pointed out, I believe it was the last podcast, the flip side to this argument now is if you have millions of people unemployed around the world, they're not going to be wanting to go buy a new Xbox, and that could be the flip side. But for those who are luckily still employed and can afford it, I do believe you'll probably still see this around the fall. We haven't heard anything to suggest that's going to be the case. And Zach, I don't know if you want to speak to Surface products. Do you have anything to share there?
Yeah, I mentioned it briefly on the podcast. We are hearing the hardware event late April, early May, which is Book 3 Go 2, likely the earbuds, possibly headphones too. Which won't be a huge upgrade over the headphones.
It makes sense with the headphones just because they've been severely discounted. Severely, but dramatically discounted. They're $200 now versus $350.
Yeah, and also Surface Duo. We're expecting them to announce that Surface Duo will be available to buy very soon.
Yeah, and I think what's important about that, we're not expecting Microsoft to be show the stuff off and be like, you can get them in November.
Right. It'll be also, in a few weeks to couple months. So,
I mean, Apple did successfully launch its iPad, its new version of its iPad and MacBooks. Yeah.
So it'll be how Surface has always done it. They have the event and they say you can pre-order today. They will start shipping
4 to 6
in 3
weeks.
to 4 weeks.
Yeah. So that's good. Yeah, someone says Intel doesn't manufacture much chip level stuff in China. That's true. Although I think they do rely on some other memory components. But you're right.
Dan and Zach, do you call into the Microsoft earnings reports? Are you able to ask questions at that event? No and no. We can listen to the call, but those calls for people calling in and asking questions, those are for shareholders. We're not shareholders.
And big financial analysts.
We're not shareholders, so we don't get a chance.
Yeah, I think they would take 12
Yeah.
people. It's like a very small number,
You
but
know, like if I
I don't
was
know
on that
what I would
call,
ask.
I'd be like,
Yeah,
when's Windows Phone coming back? Every single time.
seriously. Yeah, I mean, listen, I can do some things well. I can't pretend to do that level of financial. Like those
Yeah.
questions they ask, I'm like, I don't know what that means,
Because all my
Like,
questions would be consumer focused, and it just wouldn't make any sense. Because
right?
like,
It'd be
so
like
was
me. Every time, you ever see Fight Club when he first calls Tyler Durden and
yeah.
Tyler's like eating, he's munching, he's like, I'd be like, so yeah, consumer stuff. Like it'd just be like a total dumb question.
Lumia, huh?
Yeah.
Alicia is asking. To me, it seems like Microsoft 365 is the same thing as Office 365 plus other things. So why should people buy Office versus the other one if it costs the same? Well, Microsoft 365 is replacing Office 365. If you're an Office 365 subscriber, you will be automatically, air quotes, upgraded to Microsoft 365 on April 21st and automatically get the new features. Microsoft 365 replaces Office 365 and then adds a bunch of more stuff to it. So that's how that works. Yeah, you can still buy Office standalone, like the non-subscription Microsoft Office 2019, I think it's called. And that obviously won't have any of the additional benefits that the subscription has. But you won't have to pay a monthly to yearly subscription for it. So, any news on Bluetooth support for the new Xbox? I believe there's no Bluetooth support. I think it's the same as the Xbox One.
Right. Yeah. I, is that the case?
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, right.
Microsoft hasn't
Because
confirmed, but
I was
that's
just
what we've
thinking
been
because I
hearing.
have these Razer headphones,
Yeah.
which I tweeted about recently. I forgot the rumbling ones. What's the name of them? Begins with an A. I think. And Razer makes these headphones that like have haptic feedback and they rumble like based on the music and like the audio effects. I've been playing Doom with them. It's been outstanding. But I was trying to think of how they connect to the Xbox. But I think I think these were made for Xbox and they have the special Xbox wireless chip in them. By the way, those headphones are that with Doom is so wild. Go play Doom, the Doom Eternal. It's such a blast. You haven't played it yet, have you?
I have not. No, I'm not a huge fan of Doom.
Yeah.
Who is this Teams family thing for? Why not have a more consumer-facing brand? The branding Teams is for consumer/family. Is a consumer/family turn off. How do they expect this to be adopted? I honestly, I am thinking the same thing. I think Microsoft Teams is a very enterprisey, clinical. It's not a very friendly brand for families. I think it'd be weird to get your kids to sign up for Teams. I'll text you on Teams. I don't know. It just seems weird. It is weird. I agree, but Microsoft seems very confident in the branding. So who knows?
I could see it just because it's about like you get to share a calendar, you get to share photos,
Yeah,
you get
but
to.
Teams.
I know the naming is kind of weird
Yeah,
for it.
I've never looked at my family and thought, yes, team. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, but then again, Google Hangouts is kind of corny. That's a little bit too much. That's a Steve Buscemi, hey kids, how you doing? Let's hang out. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little corny, right? So I mean, I never jump on names too much just because I find tons of Apple names pretty bad too, but it doesn't stop anything, right? So it's a funny question here. Is there any cannabis related gadgets or tech Dan thinks is cool, but mainstream don't know about it? I can't say I've tried a lot of stuff, but it's also partly because I'm very happy with PAX, P-A-X. They're a company based, I believe, in Nevada. They've been very early on technology. They make these little vaporizers, and I don't have one in front of me, but it's a little vape system. And they've been pushing technology in a way that this audience would find super fascinating. Just real quickly, they just came out with the new version, the PAX Era Pro. It has a little NFC chip system in it. So how it works is you buy the pods. The pods are unique cannabis mixtures from companies. They're all validated and all this kind of stuff. You can see the ingredients. But what's neat is when you put the pod into the vaporizer, it's UFC, and your phone will recognize it. So whatever that pod is, it brings up what the strain is, the mixture of THC and CBD and all this kind of stuff to it, and you can read about it. And it's just so smart because it brings up all that info, so you know exactly what you're getting. It also calibrates in the vaporizer the hit and dosage you should do. So if you just want to do a little dosage and not like get really messed up, you can actually set that on this thing, and it tells you even the smart temperature to call it and smart hit. So it takes all the thinking out of it, and it also does precision calibration of the strain you're doing based on the strain. There's the company also now has basically a progressive web app for their website. And this is important because Apple banned all these apps from their store, but you can actually run this on PC. You can install it as a PWA, and it controls the vaporizer, and it has Bluetooth connection. So the web app will actually see, you can sync up and pair to your vaporizer, the PAX Era, and it goes. And what's neat is when you inhale, it actually will show a meter on the screen. It's all wild. Like that's the company I would recommend. I don't know about a ton of others, but I really like what they've done if you're into geeks and partaking in the devil's cabbage.
Do you think the Duo launching earlier is going to have a developer type discount like was rumored for Build? I don't think so. I think what I had heard around that was if you were physically at Build, they were just going to sell it at a discount because that way you've paid for your ticket. They know that you've already paid a substantial amount of money to be there, therefore they'll give you the discount. They can't really check that online because anyone can claim to be a developer. So I don't think you'll get that discount anymore, unfortunately. Yeah.
Microsoft should make GroupMe into an SMS RCS client that upgrades to full GroupMe chat if both users have an account. I mean, 100% agree. Zach and I have ranted endlessly about GroupMe on this podcast. We both appreciate GroupMe. It's a fun app. It's one of the few apps that Microsoft makes that's legit fun. And there was so much potential. And they blew it. And as far as I can tell, that app is on maintenance mode and just gets updated, but they're not doing any of the stuff you just brought up. And you're 100% right. They could have done much more with that. I said last week on the podcast, GroupMe should have been Telegram, because Telegram keeps doing amazing new features. They just introduced folders. You have so many chats, you can now collapse them into a folder and then organize them. Like they're just doing stuff that GroupMe could have theoretically done, but because Microsoft didn't see the potential there, they just blew it, and it's dumb. I mean, in fairness, Skype bought GroupMe, and then Microsoft bought Skype, which means Microsoft, in theory, might not have ever cared about GroupMe, right? But it's clear they had an opportunity there, and I think it's probably too late maybe to do it, but also I don't know.
Any progress on that pro-con guide for Alexa versus Google Assistant as the best Cortana replacement for Microsoft services? So I've got the Echo Studio. I'm going to be doing a write-up next week on transitioning from the Invoke to that. And I guess that will sort of act as the version for Alexa. I think I'll do a write-up for the Google Assistant one at some point as well. I do have a Google Assistant one somewhere. But I already know the answer. It's Alexa. Alexa is the better choice. If you want to tie in with Microsoft, you should get an Alexa, because the integration is a little bit more native there, because you can sync up things like your Microsoft Calendar, Skype, all of that stuff, whereas you can't really do that on the Google Assistant. At least for last time I checked, you didn't. I also think you can still access Cortana through Alexa, which might be beneficial to you, might not.
It's not just about names, it's about mind share, and I don't see Teams having any mind share at all here. I mean, maybe. I think it's too early to say. It's not out there yet. We don't know. I will, to challenge that, I would say Teams is Microsoft's most successful and fastest adopted product to date. It's done very well. Now, you can make the argument, well, of course, because it's included with Office and businesses just use it for that reason, but it has a really high usage. And I don't think all of it's because it's just free. I think a lot of it is like companies see the value in it and prefer it. And it doesn't seem to have affected that. Now, the consumer world is definitely different, but I mean, I don't know. You can make the same argument for Excel. Like if you were back in, what was it, 1980s when Excel first came out, I think it was the late 80s maybe. To this day, no one knows why it's called Excel. There's some theories around it, like X and a cell, because you use cell blocks in Excel and the X. It's a corny name, and I don't think many of us would have been like, "Oh, Excel, that's cool." Like, I don't know, PowerPoint. Yeah, I don't know. Is PowerPoint great? I mean, there's a lot of these names which I feel like I think we overthink this stuff. I think the first thing you should ask about any product is it any good? I don't think there are a ton of products that are really good, have all the features, and is a great user experience, and actually solves problems for people or allows them to do new stuff that fail solely because of the name. Like, I don't think Zune failed because it's called Zune. I don't think it helped, but Zune failed for a bunch of other reasons too. And so, like, I don't know. Windows Phone didn't fail because it was called Windows Phone, right? There's a lot of this stuff. SkyDrive, OneDrive, like these have done well regardless of the name changes. So I think we overthink this name stuff too much, and we're all sort of, armchair experts. And most people will think, we don't know what most people think. I don't think people think about this stuff too much. Also, Zoom. Like people are using Zoom. That's probably why. Like, why would you call a product that focuses on video chat Zoom?
Because you can zoom in.
You can't. I don't think you actually can.
How can you not?
Like it just doesn't. Yeah. Or what about Google Duo?
Yeah, that Duo's a weird one. Yeah.
Like, why is it called Duo? Video and voice, I guess. I don't know. It's a weird name. It does. Yeah. I don't know. I don't like criticizing names too much.
I think that's pretty much it. Been doing this for a while.
Oh, I missed the beach ball.
You missed the beach ball. Oh, do you usually play that?
Yeah. Yeah, Mixer. 42 hits. Congratulations, people. Sorry I missed out. I was looking at the YouTube part. I see a lot of ads teams on YouTube. I've seen they're running Teams ads on major networks here in the US during prime time pretty regularly. And they're actually a pretty cool ad. I'm seeing a ton of advertising. Dude, I'm telling you, Teams, that's why I'm not saying Skype is dead. I will say, though, for Microsoft, Teams is their future.
Yeah.
Like, that's where they're putting all their money into. And they're getting a lot of great results. But yeah, I see a lot of primetime commercials for Teams on TV, which it's not something you would have seen for other services. So Surface earbuds, any word? We already talked about that. We do expect to hear something at a April event, which will probably be online only, and it'll probably come out. Those will probably come out right away. I imagine they could probably announce those and be like, we're shipping those in like a week or two, maybe even next day. Like, so yeah, but yeah, earbuds, they come in the gray and the black, and they should be shipping to all countries that currently sell Surface devices. So we should all be able to get those right away. Yeah, someone just put in our Mixer room the Teams ad that is showing over Canada and USA. Yeah, it's a good ad. Like, go check it out. You can also find it on YouTube. I'll put it in the YouTube chat too. It's actually a really good ad, like, because you're going to also see a lot of Surface devices too in there. MateBook X13 2020, aside from processor and MX250, any other improvements? I didn't get to be a part of that briefing on that product. I don't have it yet, but from my understanding is correct. That is basically all that's new with it, which makes it less exciting. I like the MateBook X Pro. It's or MateBook X13, and Huawei makes some incredible hardware. My issue is they need to get anti-reflective displays because their displays are just a little too glossy for my tastes. I also would like to see them fiddle with hardware design a little bit better. Their hardware design is nice, but I want them to get a little bit more personal and unique with their own hardware designs. It's clearly a little too MacBook-ish, which I get. Hey, if you're switching from a MacBook to Huawei's, it kind of makes sense. But I'd like to see them. They have the chops to actually create some really gorgeous hardware. I kind of like to see them try. Where can we go to keep track of Microsoft digital events? That's a good question. I do not know. Zach, do you have any info on that?
I do not. I think it's pretty much they're just going to treat it the way they've treated announcing real events. Is they'll say that they're going to be doing one in a few weeks, and that's when we know it's happening. I don't think there's like a set schedule. I think they've already confirmed that Ignite, Build, and Inspire will be virtual events. Maybe the Ignite and Build. I don't know about Inspire, but we already know there'll be virtual events, assuming around the same time as when the physical events were going to be. But for hardware events, no, there's no sort of schedule or any rhyme or reason to it. We know there's one in the spring and one in the fall, and we're expecting that to be the same this year.
Adatum, Adamia. Sorry if I don't get your name right. Everyone uses Google Docs, Google Sheets, Slack, Dropbox, etc. Blah blah blah. How many of your friends go to Office Online to share a document versus Google Docs? First of all, anecdotal information here totally irrelevant. I don't care about what your friends use or my friends use. It's actually kind of irrelevant. Fact is, Office is the go-to service for this, and a lot of people who rely on Office say that Google stuff doesn't compare. Now, Google stuff does pretty well for K through 12 schools,
and I think a lot of startups use Google Suite as well, whatever it's called.
But the Fortune 100 companies, Fortune 500 companies, big colleges and universities, it's not okay. There's no world right now where Office is doing poorly. Mm-hmm. They can always do better, but they're not under an immediate threat. And even from Google stuff, and Google stuff does all right, but you can't, like, something like Excel is a good one. Like, I know Google's data sheets or whatever it's called pales compared to Excel. And it's because you can't recreate 20 years of Office apps and productivity apps in a couple of years. It's the same reason why, like, redoing Windows is difficult. You just can't redo it all. The amount of effort that's gone to Excel over these years is the reason why it's preferred. Now, if you're just doing basic stuff, Google's fine. But the reason why people like Excel is for professionals, because you really go to the next level with what they want to do with it.
I feel like after the talent acquisition last fall for Mixer, MS hasn't done enough to market it. Twitch is having a moment of growth with COVID-19. Is Microsoft waiting for Xbox Series S to push Mixer? I don't think so. I think Microsoft were hoping that more and more people would start streaming on their consoles. I think they were really anticipating normal people wanting to stream, which hasn't happened. What's really happened is there's people just prefer watching other people stream. Because the whole reason Microsoft bought Mixer was so they could build their own native streaming service into Xbox. But it turns out most people don't really want to stream from their consoles. They prefer, if they are a streamer, they prefer using an external capture card, streaming through their PC to somewhere like Twitch, or even Mixer as well. But they just prefer having that control. Whereas on Xbox, it's very much, I'm going to stream the game. That's basically it. And yeah, it's not taken off. And I don't know if Microsoft has an actual plan to change that. I wouldn't be surprised if Mixer goes away at some point, if I'm honest.
They're not doing well.
Yeah.
It's a shame. There was so much fire 2 years ago with them, a lot of potential, and just doesn't seem to have, those numbers that came out this week were pretty damning. And I don't know, this is not my world. I'm not a gamer. I'm definitely not a streamer. So I don't really have any good advice here, but it's obviously I think Ninja was a big risk because that was I said this before, the Hail Mary.
It was an idiotic move.
Yeah, and I don't think it's definitely not working the way it should, right? There was, when he came over, there was that like moment. It's like the Windows Phone thing. It's like that moment where like this could be shifting. We did see some other big Twitch users starting to switch, and they're talking about switching and all this. So there was like that moment where it looked like it was going to happen, and it didn't. And it happened with Windows Phone too, because every time I bring up Windows Phone, someone's like, it was 15% market share, like in this one town in Italy for 6 months, right? But the rest of the world, it was like 1 to 3%. But I agree. I mean, there was like this moment where it did have momentum, and it looked like it could change, and doesn't. And
I'm just looking at the browse all page for top streams on Mixer. You got Shroud at 7,000 viewers, Ninja at 5,500 viewers, and then an official game account, Smite, at 2,800. That it's basically all it's 1,800, 700. These aren't huge streamers outside of the first two. Everybody else on this platform is, for lack of a better term, a nobody in the streaming world, which is rude to say. I don't mean it in negatively there, but you know what I mean. Compared to Twitch, which has lots and lots of streamers who have lots and lots of viewers, Mixer only has two with lots and lots. We're on Mixer as well ourselves, so we're including ourselves in this. But yeah, do you remember, Dan? At one point, we were the #1 stream on Mixer a long time ago.
Vaguely. I think Richard Devine made a point about this, about sort of the problem with Mixer is that like anyone could like they almost made it too easy. Like if you're on Xbox or on PC, you like hit a button and you can just stream, and so you get like thousands of streams.
Yeah, of just
But
yeah.
it's not like a kind of curated content of and quality stuff. And this brings up like Facebook, where and Facebook already has a natural discovery because it's Facebook and you're already probably on Facebook and all this kind of stuff. These are hard problems to solve. I don't pretend to have the solutions for them, but
All right, I think I got to head off.
sounds good.
Thank you for tuning in, everyone. We'll be back next week, as always. Follow us on Twitter. We'll keep you updated on when the podcast is going live and all of that stuff. But until then, see you next time.
Take care.